The realm of trees descends upon the Douluo Continent. Hey, fanfic family. So glad to see you here again to continue this incredible adventure. As always, kindly remember, this story is 100% fiction. So don't go looking for dimensional portals in your closet. All rights to this fantastic novel belong to the original author. We're just your humble narrators of epic tales. Are you enjoying the fanfic? Show it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and dropping us a like. And if you're impatient for more exclusive content, our Patreon is your happy place. Chapter 276. She noticed Xiaogang. Qian Renxue followed Jin Douluo back to the temple. Upon entering, they saw Bibi Dong standing in the main hall, gazing up at the angel statue, lost in thought. Perhaps startled by the footsteps, Bibi Dong turned to the two of them. "You're back." Her tone was flat, tinged with a sigh, lacking both the joy of a mother seeing her child and the indifference of a stranger. This very attitude shattered Qian Renxue's earlier cheerfulness. "What are you doing here?" Bibi Dong lowered her eyes, momentarily speechless. After learning of Qian Renxue's return to Wuhan City, she hadn't known what she was thinking, and had come here in a daze. But now that she actually saw her, she didn't know what to say. Hatred and familial affection intertwined, she didn't know what her true feelings for Qian Renxue were. Jin Douluo silently watched the mother and daughter. If possible, he hoped that Bibi Dong and her granddaughter would develop a closer relationship. They say blood is thicker than water, and even tigers don't eat their cubs. He didn't believe Bibi Dong truly had no feelings for her daughter. He had even considered killing Bibi Dong, but considering Jin's auntie's death, killing his granddaughter's mother would be too tragic for a child. Fortunately, Bibi Dong had passed her most frenzied period. Although her strength was becoming increasingly unfathomable, her emotions were much more stable than years ago. Each of the three harbored their own thoughts, and the magnificent hall fell silent. After a long while, Bibi Dong broke the silence. "Now that you're back, take a good rest." She then turned and walked towards the hall's exit. However, perhaps sensing her earlier weakness, she paused. "I've heard about the second elder's matter. Since you have your own plans, I won't try to dissuade you. But you still need to be careful of Ningfengzi and the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Their strength is too great now, and you'll have a hard time controlling them." She knew Qian Renxue wouldn't listen, but she couldn't remain silent. Jin Douluo watched Bibi Dong leave the palace, then smiled at Qian Renxue, who seemed hesitant to speak. "Xiaogang, what she said makes some sense, Grandpa, even you say that." Qian Renxue was exasperated, her powerful empress persona completely gone, replaced by that of an ordinary child. Jin Douluo laughed heartily. "But don't worry, you still have Grandpa and Mother. As long as you're strong enough, no one will dare to harbor any other thoughts towards you." Meanwhile, outside the city of slaughter, Tang slowly put away his 8 spider lances, silently listening to the divine decree in his ear. The first test of the Rakshasa god, having absorbed the life force of 100, has been passed. Reward, level 2 soul power. All soul rings increased by 100 years. A massive surge of energy seemed to pour directly into his body from the void. Tang was both surprised and delighted, intoxicated by the exhilarating feeling of his rapidly increasing strength. Level 68, not far from level 69. Is this the power of a god? To be able to create power out of thin air, Tang smirked, clenching his fist tightly. When he received this mission, he had considered hunting spirit beasts to complete it, since there were many low-level spirit beasts. However, after his trip to the starred-out Great Forest, he changed his mind. He then turned his attention to the area around the city of slaughter. There were many people there, and even those who weren't heinous criminals were at least petty thieves. Tang felt no guilt about dealing with such people. Having fewer of them would be a good thing for the world. Moreover, the life force he absorbed from humans was far purer than that from spirit beasts, so he didn't need to bother refining it, which led to his rapid increase in cultivation. Feeling the real feedback from the divine test, Tang slowly closed his eyes, waiting for the divine decree to descend. Now that he had the help of the gods, he believed that his strength would soon catch up with Li Sun. In a void on the outskirts of the god realm, Rakshasa god leaned back in his soft recliner, observing Tang condition with his divine sense. "This is boring. I thought I'd find some fun, but this kid doesn't seem to have the same breakdown as Bibi Dong when she devoured living beings. What should we do next?" Rakshasa god pondered, resting his chin on his hand. In a flash of inspiration, a brilliant idea struck him. "I've got it. Didn't he just make a deal with those soul beasts? Let's do this. In the lower realm, A majestic divine voice suddenly resounded in Tang San's mind. Rakshasa God's second trial, devour the life force of 500 soul beasts. Stunned and bewildered, Tang San frowned at the trial requirements, his mood instantly becoming complicated. He had just established a relationship with the soul beasts of the starred-out Great Forest, and due to their bloodline and Doming's guarantee, they had even made some agreements. He never expected the divine trial to involve him devouring soul beasts. Lost in thought and conflicted, Tang San's consciousness suddenly descended into chaos. A voice in the darkness told him he shouldn't do this, but it was instantly overshadowed by his thirst for power and his hatred for the 7-treasure Glazed tile school in Lisun. Different voices tried to persuade each other, and gradually, the first voice that told him was drowned out, because he suddenly realized that besides the starred-out Great Forest, there were many other places in this world teeming with soul beasts. He could complete the second test of the divine trial without breaking the agreement. Tang San suddenly opened his eyes, a glint of light shooting out, and a slow smile appeared on his lips. Time flows differently in the god realm and the mortal world. Rakshasa goddess, who had initially thought she could enjoy some entertainment, froze on her face when she saw Tang San's direction. After a moment, Rakshasa goddess recovered, gritting her teeth. Fine, I didn't think that far ahead. She no longer needed to pay attention to the second test, because even if Tang San performed exceptionally well, it wouldn't be what she wanted to see. Rakshasa goddess knew of Tang San's talent. But she currently held Bibi Dong, whose talent was similar to Tang San's, under her control. She wasn't worried about her divine position having no successor. If she truly wanted a successor, she would have simply found someone of similar talent, had them pass the test, and freed herself. Why would she be hiding and wary of the Azura goddess? What did talent matter? What was the content of the divine test? It was all up to her. Rakshasa goddess continuously scanned the continent with her divine sense, and soon spotted someone connected to both Tang San and Bibi Dong, Xiaogang. Lufang Town was a small town in the Starfall Empire. Although small, it was prosperous due to its proximity to the official road leading to Xiandao, facilitating trade. Most importantly, the starred-out Great Forest lay 100 miles away. Therefore, despite its small size, it was comparable to a town. Xiaogang had become a teacher in this town. However, unlike Notting Academy, it was a small, privately run school, and he didn't have a principal to look after him. Chapter 277 Hatred is the breeding ground for increased strength. Have you heard? Our master's been harassed by parents again, a teacher said to those around him without any regard for others. This immediately drew the attention of several people, who pricked up their ears. Tell us what happened. It's because he always recommends useless spirit beasts for his students to absorb? Haha, serves him right. Does he think this is the Heavenly Dao sect? I don't know how stupid the people at Heavenly Dao are, actually promoting this good-for-nothing to a master. If the two countries go to war in the future, I don't even want to imagine how weak Heavenly Dao's army will be. The surrounding laughter was loud, showing no regard for others. Many people looked at Xiaogang with strange eyes, eager to see if he would refute them. But Xiaogang seemed used to it, his expression unchanged in the face of accusations, doubts, and ridicule. HMPH. Foolish. Xiaogang looked down on these low-level teachers from the bottom of his heart. Not only were their spirit power low, but their knowledge was also shallow. They didn't even understand the 10 core competencies of a martial spirit. They could only educate newly awakened children. Arguing and debating with fools is a complete waste of time. Xiaogang carried the documents back to his dormitory. Since the Blue Lightning Tyrant clan was destroyed by the Heaven Dao Alliance and the 7-treasure Glazed tile school, he had been here for some time. He had experienced grief and despair, but quickly recovered. Hatred is the breeding ground for growth, but due to his own talent limitations, he couldn't use this motivation to break through his limits. Even the level 8 soul power absorbed by Tang San had only barely recovered to level 7, still a bit short of level 29. But he had anticipated this, because his strength had never been based on soul power level, but rather on his vast knowledge base. Li Sun's soul ring system and martial soul mutation were his research topics during this period. The fact that Tang San, with a single martial soul, could overpower a man with twin martial souls, puzzled him, but it also piqued his interest. Xiaogang believed that as long as he thoroughly studied Li Sun and presented his findings to the Star Luo Emperor, given the current relationship between the two countries, His revenge against the Heaven Dao Alliance and the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School wouldn't be far off. However, he was currently troubled by 2 problems. Firstly, there was a lack of information on mutated martial souls, and secondly, there was no suitable person to put his theories into practice. Xiaogang placed the documents in his hand on the table one by one and picked up his pen to organize them. Suddenly, he felt a bone-chilling cold, which made him shiver inexplicably. What's wrong? Am I catching a cold? Xiaogang crumpled the paper he had accidentally scribbled on into a ball, tightened his collar, and wondered. The northernmost part of Douluo Continent is called the Far North, which is similar to the north and south poles of Earth. Here, there is little sunshine all year round, and the entire region is covered with white snow. Cold is the only color of this place. Compared to the extreme cold, soul beasts are even more dangerous. As one of the 3 forbidden zones for humans, due to the extreme environment and lack of human footprints, the soul beasts living here are rarely disturbed by humans. So the level of soul beasts is generally very strong. But there is also a drawback here, that is, there are very few soul beasts that can adapt to this environment, and the energy in the region is not as abundant as in places like the starred out Great Forest, which results in a smaller overall number of soul beasts than in other places. Far North, forbidden zone for humans, danger. Looking at the large red characters at the top of the map, Li Sun nonchalantly put away this useless item. Compared to 10,000 years later, humanity's exploration of the Far North is much less in this era. Even the humans living in this region only follow the safe paths paved by their ancestors to hunt weaker soul beasts. Those with some means will take their children to the interior to hunt soul beasts for soul rings, and then return to this place to enjoy their wealth. Is Xiaogang awake? If so, show me the way. Li Sun sank into his spiritual sea, nudging the large, sprawled-out worm. What do you want, brother? Xiaogang rubbed its eyes, looking at Li Sun blankly. Did Li Sun block it out a couple of days ago because he found it noisy? Look outside. Li Sun finished speaking and withdrew from his spiritual sea. Seeing this, Xiaogang quickly extended her spiritual power and, sensing their surroundings, exclaimed with delight, "You've arrived in the Far North. My target this time is the Titan Snow Demon King. Do you know where he is?" Li Sun communicated with Xiaogang using his spiritual power while wandering aimlessly forward with Sword Douluo and the others. The group had all changed their attire. Although they were much stronger than when Hoyuheo arrived, warm clothing was still essential in the extreme weather of the Far North. Xiaomang's small eyes darted around. Why bother with all that? Didn't I tell you about the Ice Empress? Let's just go find her directly. She has 300,000 years of cultivation. My goal this time is the 8th spirit ring of my first martial soul. It would be a waste to attach the Ice Empress to it. Li Sun shook his head. The Ice Empress might give me ultimate attributes. If paired with my second martial soul, the improvement would be even greater. Same here, same here. Since we're already here, let's take her with us. Xiaogang frantically searched her spiritual sea. Li Sun didn't immediately agree, but instead raised a second question. Xiaogang, haven't you noticed that my second spirit has almost no effect on increasing my spirit power? This is because the spirit rings attached to my first spirit far exceed those of my second. If I continue to attach spirit rings now, I'll lose a method for rapid advancement after level 90. He paused, then added, however, this opportunity could be a chance to talk to the Ice Emperor, giving her time to think, so we don't have to go through all that trouble later. Okay, but when I see the Ice Emperor, could you let me talk to her? Xiaogang thought for a moment, then said hesitantly. No problem. Li Sun chuckled. However, Li Sun had clearly agreed too soon. Xiaogang, this useless fellow, didn't know the way at all. She had either hidden in ice crevices or drifted across the sea during her cultivation journey, and was completely ignorant of the Far North. The only thing she was certain of was that if she kept heading north, she would reach the core area of the Far North, where the 3 heavenly kings resided. The harsh environment and swirling snow, while not posing a direct threat to Li Sun and his group, significantly slowed their progress as they concealed their cultivation auras. They also had to constantly be wary of spirit beasts suddenly attacking from the deep snow. As the snow deepened, the group reached the heart of the Far North, where 10,000-year-old spirit beasts were no longer common. Suddenly, a terrifying aura descended. Although not specifically targeted at Li Sun and his group, its powerful presence still put them on alert. However, this aura arrived and departed quickly, as if it hadn't even noticed them. Chapter 278 The Gap in Strength and Racial Bloodline. Sword Douluo stood with his sword at his side, his soul power contained within him, ready to strike at any moment. Bone Douluo and Poison Douluo protected Li Sun in the middle. The aura that had flashed by just moments before was already nearly equal to that of Sword Douluo. Although their exact combat strength was unknown, caution was always the best policy. The strength of soul beasts fluctuated greatly, much like human geniuses. They were judged not only by their years of cultivation but also by their bloodline talent. Take the Azure Bull Python, for example. With 100,000 years of cultivation, it could rival a level 96 human, and even contend with a level 97 Sword Douluo. It would simply die eventually. Soul beasts in the far north had a far greater environmental advantage than those in the starred out Great Forest, and their unleashed power was no less than, if not greater. Xiaogang had once said that the Titan Snow Demon clan, who lived in the far north, were invincible if they gathered together. It was said that this clan were descendants of the ancient ice gods' encounter with the Titan giants, and in terms of bloodline alone, it would be difficult to find a more noble race. However, Li Sun had reservations. What soul beast wouldn't be powerful after cultivating for 100,000 years? Did they really think every one of them was like Xiao Wu? While the Titan Snow Demon King could unleash even greater power, one's strength is no match for many. After all, in this world, one's backing is paramount. It's the Ice Emperor's aura, the heavenly dream Ice Silkworm suddenly shouted excitedly in Li Sun's mind. Li Sun's eyes flickered, noting the location where the aura had just dissipated. He then briefly explained the situation to Sword Douluo and the other two. Sword Douluo had personally witnessed the heavenly dream Ice Silkworm, and since this soul beast now had a symbiotic relationship with Li Sun, he generally trusted its words. Choosing a different direction, avoiding the Ice Emperor's area, 2 days later, a truly colossal creature appeared within their mental detection range. A body hundreds of meters tall, with powerful muscles that even snow-white fur couldn't conceal, it was hard to imagine that such a massive creature could maintain such a powerful physique. Compared to it, the Titan giant ape looked like a chihuahua. Not only Li Sun, but even the three Sword Douluo's expressions turned serious. Although a large body doesn't necessarily mean great strength, the power one can unleash is certainly proportional to their size. Take Li Sun's martial soul true body, for example. Although its quality is lacking, its massive size and dense attacks forced even Poison Douluo to avoid its sharp edge and fight from a distance, demonstrating its ability in direct combat. Poison Elder, observe the situation here before making any plans, Sword Douluo said, nodding to Bone Douluo before bursting forth. Bone Douluo followed closely behind, a bone dragon lifting him up, his aura suddenly surging. Poison Douluo clicked his tongue, shaking his head helplessly. Due to the extreme environment of the far north, his strength was limited here. The native soul beasts of the far north are very sensitive to changes in their surroundings, as both hunting and hiding are highly skilled tasks. Skilled hunters get to eat, while those who are less skilled are eaten alive. This is a true reflection of the perpetually snow-covered region. Sensing the fluctuations coming from afar, the Titan Snow Demon King turned its head in confusion. Since becoming a 200,000-year-old soul beast, it hadn't felt a direct threat for a long time. Humans? As they drew closer, the Titan Snow Demon King looked at the two black dots hurtling towards it with a puzzled expression. Humans were extremely rare in the far north. Aside from a few lost souls, very few dared to appear in the core area. Even it had never seen many humans in its entire life, let alone dared to approach it. Roar, feeling its dignity violated, the Titan Snow Demon King angrily pounded its chest, the rolling sound spreading in all directions, actually clearing away the snowflakes falling in the area. It spread its large palm, its 200,000-year cultivation surging within it, and an ice ball the size of its head solidified. The Titan Snow Demon King leaned back in a charging motion, its 60-meter-long arm swinging forward in an instant, violently hurling the ice ball. Boom! The moment the ice ball shot out, it created a terrifying sonic boom, as if the air itself was being torn apart, forming swirling trails as it hurtled straight towards Sword Douluo. Titan Snow Demon King could clearly sense Sword Douluo's power, thus making him his primary target. Seeing this scene through his spiritual power, Li Sun had only one thought in his mind. A meteorite hitting the earth. This was the ultimate power unleashed by a 100-meter-tall spirit beast, unrelated to any skill. Faced with such an attack, even Sword Douluo was moved. His third spirit ring lit up, and the 7-kill sword speed instantly increased, flying close to the ice ball. Haha, damn it, Bone Douluo had just opened his mouth to laugh when he saw Sword Douluo drawing the fire, but then he saw another huge ice ball rapidly approaching him, reaching him in an instant. His 8th spirit ring lit up, and a pitch-black special gate appeared before him. To accommodate the enormous ice ball, Bone Douluo had deliberately opened the special gate to its maximum extent. The massive ice sphere, carrying unparalleled power, instantly disappeared into the dark portal, silently and without causing the slightest ripple. Bone Douluo laughed, turning the other portal towards Titan Snow Demon King. The ice sphere seemed to pierce through special barriers, bursting forth instantly without any loss of speed or power. As a renowned powerhouse across the continent, how could he be without some tricks up his sleeve? He was never much weaker than Sword Douluo. Bone Douluo subconsciously glanced in Li Sun's direction. Li Sun understood, and regardless of whether Bone Douluo could see him, he raised a thumb. Bang. The ice sphere, teleported through space, was far faster than Sword Douluo's speed. Before Titan Snow Demon King could even react, it was struck by the ice sphere. The ice sphere, the size of its head, and its immense force were too much for even it to withstand, instantly sending it flying backward. Boom. Boom. A mouthful of blood spurted out as the Titan Snow Demon King, in desperation, rolled repeatedly to dissipate the force, causing glaciers to collapse along its path, cracking the hard ice layers and stirring up a cloud of snow mist. Dual slash of God and Demon. At this moment, Sword Douluo was already close. Without hesitation, he activated his 9th spirit ring, unleashing sword energy that tore through the snow mist towards the Titan Snow Demon King. Swoosh, an arm 60 meters long flew up. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Titan Snow Demon King stabilized its stance, and a domain rapidly formed around it. Amplified by the power domain, its muscles bulged instantly, and its veins stood out like giant pythons. The Titan Snow Demon King's eyes were bloodshot as it looked at Sword Douluo. With a roar, it slammed its arm into the ground. Huge ice cones, 200 to 300 meters long, surged from the ground, instantly covering an area of dozens of miles. As one of the 3 great rulers of the far north, it possessed unparalleled strength and an environmental advantage, yet it lost an arm due to carelessness. How could it not be furious? Chapter 279 Flying Sword and Ice Emperor. Crack. 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 Ice pillars rose from the ground, becoming increasingly dense the further away from the Titan Snow Demon King. Sword Douluo dodged and weaved through the air, unleashing a series of sword strikes. Compared to the Titan Giant Ape and the Azure Bull Python, these spirit beasts, capable of exploiting environmental and terrain advantages, were indeed more troublesome. He gained a deeper understanding of the spirit beasts of the far north. 9th spirit skill, Bone Transformation Dragon. Facing the surging tide of massive ice pillars, Bone Douluo's 9th spirit ring shone. The bone dragon instantly expanded, spewing out a jet of dark energy that swept across the area, shattering the ice pillars in front of it and creating a vacuum. Although the attack was blocked, it also bought the Titan Snow Demon King a moment to breathe. Its position as the 3rd strongest in the far north wasn't solely based on brute force. Its true power stemmed from a trace of control over ice and snow within its bloodline. A layer of blue light enveloped its body, and the densely packed ice spikes trembled slightly as if drawn by a force. With a sweep of its massive hand, it shot out towards Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo like a rain of arrows. 10,000 swords returned to one, facing the sky full of ice pillars. Sword Douluo's 6th spirit ring lit up, and countless flying swords appeared behind him, creating a stark contrast with the ice pillars. Bone Douluo, however, stood atop the bone dragon's head, arms crossed, showing no fear. In an instant, countless ice pillars cascaded down, intertwining with the dense flying swords, accompanied by beams of dark light, a different color from both. Crack. 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 Clang. 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 The sound of ice pillars shattering echoed throughout the sky, fragments flying everywhere, ice pillars crashing to the earth, leaving the landscape of the far north, unchanged for millennia, scarred and battered. The aftershocks of the battle continued to spread far and wide. Seeing the 2 figures relentlessly approaching despite its attacks, the Titan Snow Demon King, whose heart had been fearless for countless millennia, felt a surge of fear, a primal instinct for life, a loathing of death. Blue ripples appeared around it, and the snow within a radius of hundreds of meters suddenly swirled upwards, transforming into sharp snowflakes the size of a child's palm, lashing out at Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo. Having unleashed its skill, The Titan Snow Demon King suddenly exerted force with its legs, pushing backwards while roaring intermittently. The dense snow blades were far more threatening than the massive ice pillars. A burst of dragon breath swept away a large area, and Bone Douluo controlled his bone dragon to Sword Douluo's side. It seems to be calling for its companions. Sword Douluo instantly understood, appearing atop the bone dragon's head in a flash. A dark portal appeared, and the two vanished from their spot. Just as they disappeared, the snowflakes and ice blades crashed down like an avalanche. The Titan Snow Demon King fled quickly, but spatial movement was even faster. In just a few blinks, Bone Douluo and Sword Douluo were behind it. Huge bone spikes suddenly sprouted from the ground, though not yet reaching the Titan Snow Demon King's thigh, they still greatly hampered its movements. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Sword Douluo's spirit rings lit up one after another, unleashing streaks of sword energy. Knowing he couldn't escape, Titan Blood Demon King roared, a layer of ice armor suddenly appearing on his body. He turned and threw a punch. With a height of 100 meters and an arm span of 60 meters, his punch was like a building being swung around. A violent howl rang out, and Sword Douluo's sword energy was instantly shattered. However, he was not surprised at all. The 7-kill sword in his hand hummed continuously. Seizing the opening after Titan Snow Demon King's punch, a sword energy that made the far north light up was unleashed, instantly piercing through half of Titan Snow Demon King's body. This sword was his latest mastered move, a lifetime of trials and tribulations culminating in a single sword strike. Boom! Titan Snow Demon King's massive body lost its balance and fell backward to the ground, instantly creating a deep crater in the millennia-old ice of the far north. Just as it struggled to its feet, a crystalline flying sword appeared before it in an instant, piercing its brain through its eye before it could even react. However, for its massive size, the flying sword was far too small. While it damaged its brain, it wasn't fatal. The Titan Snow Demon King roared, struggling relentlessly, then felt a chill in its brain, frost gradually appearing in its eyes, and its struggle slowed. The frost corroded it. The Titan Snow Demon King never dreamed that a soul beast that controlled ice and snow would die from being frozen. With a shattering sound, the crystalline flying sword smashed through the Titan Snow Demon King's head and flew out. Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo recognized Li Sun's second spirit. Seeing the Titan Snow Demon King lifeless, a dazzling red spirit ring rising around it, they both breathed a sigh of relief. They simultaneously turned their gaze to Li Sun, 2,000 or 3,000 meters away, only now realizing that Li Sun's spirit was more than just a change in physical form. However, this was not the time to relax. Called by the Titan Snow Demon King, their entire clan had arrived nearby. Sensing the disappearance of their leader's aura, the remaining Titan Snow Demon apes did not attack, but instead stood and observed. A pressure emanated from Sword Douluo, and knowing they were no match, the many Titan Snow Demon apes slowly retreated. At this moment, Li Sun and Poison Douluo also arrived. Grandpa Sword, Xiaogang senses Ice Emperor's aura approaching, but please don't rush into action. Let Xiaogang and I talk to Ice Emperor first. Hearing this, Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo, who had initially breathed a sigh of relief, became anxious again. This was the difficulty of hunting 100,000-year-old soul beasts. At this level of strength, the aftershocks of their battle would spread far and wide, potentially attracting other soul beasts if they weren't careful. Not to mention the commotion caused by a behemoth like the Titan Snow Demon King, which stood hundreds of meters tall. Li soon found the Titan Snow Demon King's soul bone. Because he didn't know how the Ice Emperor would react, he didn't rush to absorb the soul ring. It was a crystal clear, deep blue left leg soul bone. Its abilities were unknown since it hadn't been absorbed yet. Although he had gained something, Li soon still felt a little regretful. What he wanted most now was an external soul bone, since there were many substitutes for the other parts of the soul bone. After storing the soul bone in his soul tool, Li soon looked northwest, and a massive surge of spiritual power erupted from his body. This sudden event startled even Sword Douluo, Bone Douluo, and Douluo. For ordinary soul masters, spiritual power was spiritual power, very different from soul power. Only when strength increased by a major level would spiritual power increase accordingly. Moreover, apart from a small number of soul masters, most soul masters only used it as a detection method and for transmitting sound. Even powerful figures like Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo hadn't delved deeply into this. And although Douluo's spiritual power was strong, compared to this surge of spiritual power, it was like a candle flame. Seeing the three looking at him with astonishment, Li Sun quickly explained, "This was emitted by Xiaogang in my spiritual sea." Spiritual sea? What's that? The three looked at Li Sun with confusion. It was the first time they had ever heard of this term. Xiaogang's immense spiritual power materialized into its true form, turning its head to glance at Li Sun's clone. "Let's go. I'll show you the second strongest among the three great kings of the far north." Chapter 280 The Lower Beast, Heavenly Dream Ice Silkworm. Soul beasts are far more afraid of death than humans, especially 100,000-year-old soul beasts. Although they possess long lifespans, they lack corresponding entertainment, making life, cultivation, and companionship paramount to them. Humans also have their share of those who fear death, but compared to soul beasts who have lived for countless years, their thirst for life is far less. The Ice Emperor Scorpion was one of them. 2,000 meters away from Li Sun, on an ice peak, a 1.5-meter-long scorpion with a crystal-like body stood guard, watching Li Sun and his group warily. The Ice Emperor had sensed the unusual fluctuations in the core area and rushed over. She initially thought it was a soul beast challenging the Titan Snow Demon King, but her arrival revealed something unexpected. The Ice Emperor could sense the energy contained within one of the group. Judging by soul beast cultivation levels, this person's current strength was roughly equal to her own. The other two humans, though weaker, were not to be underestimated. This situation aroused her alarm. Few humans ventured to the far north, let alone three such powerful humans. Having witnessed countless deaths and nearly died herself several times, she knew the preciousness of life and wasn't prepared to take any risks. Suddenly, a familiar aura rose, and Ice Empress's gaze sharpened. She saw a human child among the group suddenly split into another body, followed by a golden patterned ice silkworm landing on its shoulder. How come that thing is with a human? Ice Empress was puzzled and felt a pang of resentment. She had only narrowly survived the 300,000-year hurdle with the help of Snow Empress, but it had also damaged her very essence. She knew perfectly well that she could never overcome the 400,000-year barrier. The nearly million-year-old golden patterned ice silkworm was a great tonic for her. If she could devour it, she could not only overcome the 400,000-year hurdle but also advance further. But unfortunately, she had carelessly let it escape. Ice Empress looked at Li Sun and his group in the distance, suppressing her impulse. Although she was stronger than Titan Snow Demon King, if she faced those humans, she might very well die here. Snow Empress and I should have a way to deal with them. At worst, I'll take a smaller share. Ice Empress slowly retreated, deciding to go back and make further plans. Unexpectedly, the human with a golden patterned ice silkworm on his shoulder moved, and moved incredibly fast. What's going on? Ice Empress was somewhat surprised. She could sense the human's weakness and didn't understand why he dared to approach her with a golden patterned ice silkworm. Hadn't the golden patterned ice silkworm told the human about its power? Ice Empress stopped, wanting to see what the other party wanted to do. A short while later, with a whooshing sound, Li Sun and Tianmeng stood before Ice Empress. It was at this moment that he truly felt the magnificence of life in the Douluo world. No wonder Tianmeng became such a simp. Li Sun lowered his gaze. When he saw this scorpion, its body as radiant as crystal, he even wanted to keep one as a pet. Ice Empress, we meet again. Tianmeng looked at Ice Empress with infatuation, her words of praise flowing like a machine gun. Enough. What right do you, a mere food, have to like me? If you had stayed quietly with those people, I wouldn't have been able to do anything. But since you brought this human here, I won't be polite. Ice Empress sneered disdainfully, raising her claws to attack. The people in the distance were still watching, and she prepared to seize this rare opportunity. Xiaogang, as if she had lost her mind, was still spouting nonsense, so Li Sun had to explain herself. Ice Empress, these are just our clones. You only need to exert a little force and we'll both dissipate. Clones? Ice Empress was taken aback. Seeing Ice Empress's stunned expression, Xiaomeng's eyes revealed affection. Yes, even if you capture us, you won't get anything. Then what are you doing here? Are you trying to play with me? Upon hearing this, Ice Empress's aura gradually turned cold, and she slowly lost interest. No, of course I want you to live. I'll be very sad if you die. I just happen to find a way for us to be together forever. Xiaomeng's eyes darted around, and she cheekily moved closer to Ice Empress, circling back and forth. Enraged by this harassment, Ice Emperor unleashed a beam of light from its jewel-like tail, piercing straight through Xiaomeng. However, Xiaogang was entirely formed from spiritual energy. While it could still be injured, the sheer volume of its spiritual power rendered the attack utterly insignificant. Ice Emperor, don't be so heartless. I'm serious. Realizing Ice Emperor's attack was ineffective, Xiaogang grew bolder, rubbing against Ice Emperor. Golden patterned ice silkworm, you're courting death. Don't think I can't do anything to you just because you're a spiritual being. I'll make sure you never return to this spiritual energy. Ice Emperor roared in fury, unleashing over 300,000 years of cultivation in an instant. A vast surge of spiritual energy erupted, not as powerful as Xiaomang's, but clearly stronger than Xiaomang's current rootless state. Xiaomang, if you keep provoking her like this, I'll have no choice but to hunt her down when I get my soul ring. Li Sun coughed lightly, also quite speechless. Ice Emperor, don't rush into action. I came here to have a talk with you. Hearing Li Sun's words, Xiaomang regained its senses. The reason it dared to do this was because neither it nor Li Sun were in their original forms, but if this negotiation failed, the consequences would be unimaginable. It had been following Li Sun for some time and knew that this was no joke, so it quickly spoke solemnly. Bing Bing, I was just joking with you. To be honest, my original form no longer exists. Xiaomang immediately told Ice Emperor the whole story. What? You actually chose to sacrifice yourself for others? Bing Dian stood there, stunned. And what do you mean by becoming a god by attaching yourself to humans? I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, sacrifice and lying down on the path to godhood. I didn't quite understand it when Li Sun told me that, but now I understand its meaning more and more. Xiaomang smiled slyly. Bingdi, in our long history, have you ever heard of any soul beasts becoming gods? Bingdi fell silent for a long time. Don't even mention us soul beasts. There are no records of soul beasts becoming gods in human records, because the god realm doesn't allow species other than humans to become gods, not to mention something as unattainable as becoming a god. If I remember correctly, you probably wouldn't even survive the next heavenly tribulation. Xiaomang leaped onto Li Sun's shoulder. Human bodies have more potential compared to us soul beasts. Otherwise, why would we soul beasts have the ability to transform after advancing to 100,000 years? I suspect this is likely a form of evolution, and most importantly, Li Sun has already found the inheritance of a god. If he continues like this, he has a much greater chance of becoming a god than any other human or soul beast in this world. Li Sun revealed his martial soul at the right moment, and 7 soul rings, 1 yellow, 2 purple, 2 black, and 2 red, appeared in succession beneath his feet, reflecting on Ice Emperor's crystal-like body. Chapter 281 Hesitation. 7 spirit rings slowly rotated, dazzlingly bright, especially the 2 red spirit rings, which carried a strong sense of oppression. Through the fluctuations emanating from them, Ice Emperor Scorpion could roughly judge the cultivation level of the owners of these 2 spirit rings in their lifetime. This situation made her feel a chill in her heart. Spirit beasts didn't care about the life or death of other spirit beasts, except for their own kin, but that didn't mean they didn't understand the principle of mutual dependence. Since humans had the ability to hunt other 100,000-year-old spirit beasts, they also had the ability to hunt them. Ice Emperor, I'm not here to threaten you. If we can avoid fighting through negotiation, it's the best choice for both of us. Li Sun's left hand produced a water-cold sword, and the 7 spirit rings beneath her feet dissipated, turning into 2 red spirit rings. Seeing this, Ice Empress's heart surged with shock. 4 100,000-year soul rings. 5. Li Sun pointed at the Titan Snow Demon King 1,000 meters away, and I will continue to increase the number of soul rings until I ascend to godhood. You saw Xiaomang's condition. Although he has no body, his soul remains, and he can clearly maintain his self-awareness. If possible, I would welcome you to join us. Li Sun put away his martial soul and calmly looked at Ice Empress. Even if I don't hunt you down in the future, you won't survive the next heavenly tribulation. Why not take a gamble? Ice Empress was silent, somewhat incredulous. What will happen if you fail? We'll die together. Li Sun spread his hands and smiled. But I won't let that happen. I want to think about it. Ice Empress was somewhat tempted, but her desire for life prevented her from making a decision immediately. I have another question. Can I really maintain my sanity like the golden patterned ice silkworm? When it came to such technical issues, Xiaomang immediately perked up. I'll tell you about this, and I'm no longer called golden patterned ice silkworm. You can call me Xiaomang Ice Silkworm. Ice Emperor listened to Xiaomang explain the principle behind transcending soul beast sacrifice, her eyes flashing. I didn't expect you to be so afraid of death that you could come up with such a method. Although it's tempting, I still need to think it over carefully. After all, it concerns my life. I had no choice, Xiaogang quickly complained upon hearing Ice Emperor's sarcasm, recounting her tragic escape and subsequent imprisonment in the starred-out Great Forest. I didn't expect such a powerful soul beast force to exist on the continent, Ice Emperor exclaimed in astonishment. After a brief exchange, Li Sun, before leaving, thought for a moment and called out to Ice Emperor, if possible, you can also talk to Snow Emperor about this. Ice Emperor turned around abruptly, looking at Li Sun with disbelief. I didn't expect you to be so ambitious. Do you know Snow Emperor's cultivation level? Of course, but isn't it better for us to be as strong as possible? Li Sun smiled. How did it go? Seeing Li Sun and Ice Emperor part ways peacefully on the ice peak, Douluo's curiosity was piqued. The talks went fairly smoothly, but she needs some time to consider it, Li Sun said with a smile, noticing the three of them looking at him curiously. A spirit beast with over 300,000 years of cultivation just agreed to sacrifice itself like that. Douluo could hardly believe his ears. They had sensed Ice Emperor's aura earlier and were about to drive her away, since such a powerful spirit beast watching over him could easily cause an accident when Li Sun absorbed the spirit ring. Who knew that Li Sun would say he wanted to talk to Ice Emperor? That was a spirit beast with 300,000 years of cultivation. Apart from Sword Douluo, who could rival her? Even he and Bone Douluo combined might not be her match. Anything is possible until the outcome is clear, but by then I should have the strength to deal with this kind of thing. At worst, I'll just have to use some more methods, Li Sun said, not making any absolute statements. That's true, Douluo nodded. A spirit ring will slowly dissipate if no one absorbs it for a long time. Li Sun walked to the side of the Titan Snow Demon King and sat down cross-legged. Actually, after watching Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo fight the Titan Snow Demon King, he had a new idea, mainly regarding the quality of the spirit's true form. Compared to the 100-meter-tall Titan Snow Demon King, Li Sun's true Thousand Hands, although larger and with a faster attack frequency, was not as solid, and its agility was far inferior. Controlling a 500-meter-tall giant wooden figure was extremely taxing. Li Sun simply couldn't afford the spirit power drain from chasing enemies, and the wooden figure lacked that kind of agility. Li Sun couldn't expect all enemies to face him head-on. If a few stubborn ones died, he believed others would flee at the side of the wooden figure. If they used a kiting tactic, that would also be troublesome for him. He couldn't put all his eggs in one basket. It seemed he still needed to carefully hone his swordsmanship. As the red spirit ring was drawn in, Li Sun suddenly felt intense pain. A spirit ring from a spirit beast that was over 200,000 years old was still quite old for him. However, he had suffered far too much like this before, and he could grit his teeth and accept it. Time passed slowly, and although Li Sun was in a terrible state, he was absorbing energy methodically. As the last bit of energy was absorbed into his body, his aura suddenly surged. The period around level 80 for a spirit master marks the beginning of a qualitative change. From this level onward, a spirit master will enter the ranks of the elite. In the early stages, physical techniques and external forces might still be somewhat useful in combat, but at this point, they are often not as effective as innate spirit skill. Of course, a soul master's body is fragile. Even if they can absorb soul beasts that have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, they can still be killed by hidden weapons if they're not careful. At level 83, Li Sun slowly opened his eyes, sensing his physical condition. Compared to level 70, the energy granted by his soul ring had decreased again. It seems that after level 90, to improve quickly, I'll have to rely entirely on my second martial soul. This is also the advantage of twin martial souls, compared to the lifespan of a soul ring. The ability to continue improving rapidly in the future is the true strength of this talent. Dispersing his thoughts, Li Sun began to study his newly acquired abilities. The two skills the Titan Snow Demon King gave him were power amplification and ice manipulation, both of which were innate abilities of the Titan Snow Demon King. Power amplification could double the user's strength, while ice manipulation was more like a domain skill. Li Sun wasn't particularly satisfied or dissatisfied with him. He was almost invincible head-on, so doubling or 100-fold made little difference. What Li Sun and Xiaogang discussed greatly impacted the Ice Emperor, causing her to toss and turn for many days without a good night's sleep. She felt both a yearning to become a god and a fear of being deceived. Of course, the main reason was the fear of failure. Ice Empress struggled for a long time, and finally, after some thought, quickly headed towards Snow Empress's territory. If there was any soul beast in this world she could trust, it would definitely be Snow Empress. As for the heavenly dream eye silkworm, which was madly professing its love for her, she only felt disgusted. Chapter 282 will be etched in my memory. In the very heart of the far north. Unlike other places, there was no blizzard, only endless cold. Ice that hadn't melted for hundreds of thousands of years shimmered with azure light under the sun. And in such a place, a being stood, quietly appreciating the scenery unchanged for millennia. The Ice Empress gazed at that beautiful figure, her eyes flashing with envy and joy. Xiaogang kept praising her beauty, but how could she not know that the most beautiful being in the far north was actually the Snow Empress? You've come. The Snow Empress slowly turned around, her long, silvery white hair flowing to her feet, her azure eyes bright and clear, seemingly untouched by worldly dust. Although her cool and elegant voice lacked emotion, the Ice Empress could sense the Snow Empress's welcome. The Snow Empress was a being born of innate primal force, though classified as a soul beast, her appearance was closer to that of a human. The Ice Empress's eyes widened in amazement. No matter how many times she saw her, she was always drawn to the Snow Empress's noble and ethereal aura. After a long silence, seemingly sensing the doubt in the Snow Empress's eyes, the Ice Empress came to her senses. I came to discuss something with you. She immediately recounted the events involving Li Sun and Xiaogang. Ice Empress, I can't determine whether what that human said is true or false. The Snow Empress remained silent for a long time. You don't need to worry about your 400,000-year lifespan limit. I will help you. The Ice Empress was deeply moved upon hearing this. Snow Empress, you should know how much energy I need to survive the heavenly tribulation after damaging my essence. If you help me this time, what about your 700,000-year heavenly tribulation? It's easy for a high-level cultivator to help the weak, but for the weak to repay in kind is far more difficult. The Snow Empress naturally understood this principle. Although her cultivation level was different from the Ice Empress's, the time it took to break through the barrier was roughly the same. If she helped the Ice Empress, even if the latter repaid in time, it might not be able to keep up with the speed at which her heavenly tribulation arrived. She could only gamble on breaking through first to ensure the safety of both of them. Even so, it should still be more reliable than what humans say. After all, soul masters aim to obtain soul rings, so they can come up with any kind of falsehood or excuse. I don't believe in human promises. If possible, I'd like to see him. Zhu Di thought for a moment and didn't try to persuade her further. Bing Di felt a warm current flow through her heart and quickly moved closer to Zhu Di. After 2 months of wandering, Li soon stood again on Seagoat Island, a place where spring lasts all year round. Compared to the biting cold and the endless white expanse, he still preferred it here. You're back. Ningrongrong was as happy as ever, skipping and hopping over. Brother, I have good news for you. I'll be level 60 soon. Quite good progress. Li soon smiled and rubbed Ningrongrong's little head. Although she was younger than him, this girl was now 17 years old. She had grown up quite a bit. And it wasn't just her age that had increased. With the rise of Zhu Xiaokang's internal competition, Ningrongrong's cultivation speed had also obviously increased a lot. Of course, Ningrongrong looked up. Li soon flicked her forehead. You're getting cocky now. How many steps have you climbed? 89, bro. This test is completely unreasonable. Ningrongrong's arrogance instantly diminished. They set the rules. We only have 3 choices: obey, refuse, or break them. Li soon led Ningrongrong to the confluence of the sea god's light. He glanced back at Zhu Xiaogang and Du Yan. Today I'll guide you through this test. The sea god's light test was indeed quite difficult. Without a powerful teammate, it would be impossible to pass in a year. Even Zhu Xiaogang, the strongest of the 3 women, was currently stuck at 193 steps, far from the required 263. Of course, this was also related to their age and cultivation level. Du Yan thought for a moment, and since her requirements were the lowest, she said, Li Sun, I'll go first. Come on. Li Sun nodded, smiling and extending his hands. For him, it didn't matter who went first. Du Yan's eyes lit up, and she stepped forward to hug Li Sun's neck. Let's go. Li Sun swept Du Yan up in his arms, propelled himself forward, and dashed up the steps. In the blink of an eye, Du Yan had climbed most of the steps in her test, and only then did Li Sun begin to feel the pressure. Looking at the hard-working Li Sun, Du Yan wore a look of pure enjoyment. The requirement for her Sea God 7 trials was 136 steps, and she had already reached 98. Although she could feel the immense pressure, it was still within her tolerance. She buried her head in Li Sun's shoulder. How about a reward tonight? Feeling the warmth against his ear, Li Sun almost stumbled and fell on the steps. Regaining her footing, she said fiercely, I've seen through your true nature long ago. You're all talk and no action. When it really matters, you're more cowardly than anyone else. Let me tell you, the more you provoke me, the more you'll suffer in the end. Hell, I've been waiting for you. I was just afraid you didn't have the ability. After all, I've only ever heard of oxen dying from exhaustion. Du Guyan narrowed her almond-shaped eyes and breathed into Li Sun's ear. Giving Du Guyan a hard pinch on the buttocks, Li Sun made a mental note of this, said nothing more, and quickly rushed upwards. 110, 120, Li Sun's speed wasn't very fast, mainly because she was taking care of Du Guyan. The pressure was already quite strong starting from the 100th step. You could tell from Du Guyan's expression that moving quickly could cause her internal injuries. Even with a slower pace, Li Sun used her healing abilities to protect her in advance. Du Guyan felt a warm current circulating within her body, and her heart warmed. This was the first time she had experienced Li Sun's healing abilities. Previously, when she and Ning Rongrong argued, Ning Rongrong would always use this incident to retaliate when she got angry. Du Guyan rested her chin on Li Sun's shoulder and slowly smiled at Ning Rongrong below the mountain. Ning Rongrong stomped her feet in anger, muttering incessantly 130 when Li Sun carried Du Guyan to the top of the steps. A red light curtain shot out from Du Guyan's forehead. The pressure of the red 7-pointed star was so strong that even Li Sun was affected. First trial of the top 7 trials, passed through the light of the Sea God. Soul power increased by 1 level. Soul ring limit increased by 500 years. A voice appeared in Du Guyan's mind. Followed by layers of red light surging from her body, constantly swirling and weaving around her, finally transforming into a red halo that merged into her body. Soul rings involuntarily appeared under Du Guyan's feet. The second yellow soul ring, which was originally amplified, quietly changed, and 6 soul rings, yellow, purple, 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 black, and black, flashed one after another. Zhu Xiaogang and Ning Rongrong watched this scene from below the steps, their eyes lighting up in amazement. Li Sun also stepped down the steps at this moment, extending his hand to Zhu Xiaogang. Sister Yan will probably have to wait a while. Let's begin. Zhu Xiaogang shyly stretched out her hands, mimicking Du Guyan's gesture, and wrapped her arms around Li Sun's neck. Chapter 283 Sea God's Affinity. 2.5? Hold on tighter, there's still a lot of space. Li Sun looked at the gap between himself and Zhu Xiaogang. Zhu Xiaogang pursed her lips, a blush spreading across her cheeks, and tightened her arms around him, her eyes involuntarily avoiding Ning Rongrong's gaze. Feeling the softness against his chest, Li Sun smiled, pulled Zhu Xiaogang close, and quickly rushed up the steps. Zhu Xiaogang's 8th test task was 263 steps. Almost instantly, Li Sun had carried her over most of them. Unlike Du Guyan, a semi-support soul master, her physical strength was stronger, and she didn't feel much discomfort facing the overwhelming pressure. What really bothered her was the gazes of Ning Rongrong and Du Guyan. Shifting uncomfortably, Zhu Xiaogang slowly closed her eyes. Her shyness lessened considerably. Li Sun glanced at her out of the corner of his eye, his eyes darting around, a mischievous smile appearing on his face. He gently squeezed her hand, and a suppressed groan instantly reached his ears. At this moment, Zhu Xiaogang's cheeks were like ripe peaches. Feeling the heat on her buttocks, she buried her head in Li Sun's arms like an ostrich. Time always flies. The 263 steps were nothing to Li Sun. When his feet were firmly on the steps, a streak of blood-red light shot into the sky. Compared to the extraordinary phenomenon when Du Guyan passed the test, a trace of golden light was still hidden within it. As the golden-red energy surged into her body, a voice entered Zhu Xiaogang's mind. Top level 8th trial, completed through the light of the Sea God. Soul power increased by 2 levels, soul ring limit increased by 1,000 years, her aura suddenly increased, and the color of the soul rings under Zhu Xiaogang's feet began to change. The first 2 soul rings slowly turned purple. When everything was over, 6 soul rings, 4 purple and 2 black, were shining brightly under her feet, and her soul power reached level 68. Zhu Xiaogang opened her eyes in surprise, not expecting the reward for the divine test to be so generous. Brother Li Sun, don't worry about me, go help Rongrong complete the test first. Li Sun laughed heartily, picked her up amidst Zhu Xiuking's exclamation, and rushed down the steps. The group was already 17, and would be 18 in a year. He felt it necessary to help Zhu Xiuking overcome her shyness. Being too timid in public wouldn't do. Ninrangrong, already impatiently stamping her feet at the foot of the mountain, had witnessed the changes in Zhu Xiuking and Du Yuyan after passing the test. Her jealousy had vanished, replaced by an eagerness for the reward. How could Du Yuyan, a 7th-level test-taker, compare to her? Zhu Qing, though an 8th-level test-taker, was still inferior to her, because she was a 9th-level test-taker. Seeing Li Sun put Zhu Xiuking down, Ninrangrong quickly stepped forward with a smile, not saying a word, but her eyes clearly urged him on. Look how impatient you are. Li Sun patted Ninrangrong on the head, then stretched out his hands. Ninrangrong, already impatient, quickly wrapped her arms around Li Sun's neck. Brother, what reward do you think I'll get? Although it was a question, Li Sun detected a hint of boasting in his voice. He pondered for a moment, thinking of the rewards for the 9 trials, and gave a mysterious smile. It should be better than you expect. You'd better stay calm then, that's like you didn't say anything at all. Ninrangrong complained, but she couldn't stop smiling. She even made a face at Du Yuyan through Li Sun's shoulder. At this moment, Zhu Xiuking and Du Yuyan were also watching the results closely. Having just received an upgrade, they naturally knew the difference in rewards between each level. The 150 steps were traversed in an instant, but for Ninrangrong, it was extremely difficult. Although she had been working hard to improve her physique over the years, how much stronger could a pure support soul master be? Li Sun noticed this and quickly used his healing ability to protect Ninrangrong. But this ability wasn't omnipotent. While it ensured Ninrangrong wasn't injured, the pressure remained 223.26 as the number of steps increased. Ninrangrong's face grew increasingly pale, and she found it difficult to breathe. Her chest heaved as she gasped for air. Feeling the softness in his arms, Li Sun unleashed his killing god domain, and 8 spirit rings, 1 yellow, 2 purple, 2 black, and 3 red, emerged beneath his feet one after another. A powerful aura instantly enveloped him and Ninrangrong, easing their pressure. Seeing this, Poseidon, who had been observing from above, was startled. Only 3 or 4 months have passed, and he's already acquired another 100,000-year spirit ring, level 85. It seems my time is running out, Poseidon murmured incredulously. She had never seen anyone cultivate so quickly. She had just calculated that, barring any unforeseen circumstances, Li Sun would likely become a titled cultivator before the age of 20. As for realms above titled, with a divine trial, Poseidon didn't think he could stump him. Li Sun's 8th spirit ring lit up, a blue halo slowly spreading outwards, forming a light shield 100 meters in diameter that overlapped with a killing god domain. The previously chilling killing intent instantly turned cold, a desolate aura slowly spreading from Li Sun's body. Ninrangrong, in his arms, remained unaffected. Their speed increased, quickly traversing the 300 steps. As their feet touched the final spot, a golden light shot up from Li Sun and Ninrangrong. The golden marks on their foreheads shone brightly, and a golden pillar of light descended from the sky, enveloping them, past the double sea god's light trial. Since it was completed by both of them, the reward is split equally. Sea god's affinity increases by 2.5% for each. The golden pillar of light shattered, transforming into specks of light that surged into Li Sun and Ninrangrong's bodies. A blue light flashed on Ninrangrong's forehead, and the two were instantly enveloped in a warm, comforting power, their fatigue vanishing instantly. Gone, the light faded, and Ninrangrong stared blankly at Li Sun, somewhat incredulous. Li Sun's lips curled into a smirk, and he raised an eyebrow, barely suppressing a laugh. What else do you want? Where's my reward? What the hell is a 2.5 sea god affinity? Ninrangrong frantically sensed the changes within her body. Nothing happened at all. You yourself said it was sea god affinity. What's wrong with rewarding you with closer affinity to the god? Li Sun finally laughed. What a load of bull. Ninrangrong was devastated. Originally, she was the weakest among the 4, and now the other 2 had both received substantial improvements, while she remained stagnant. Wasn't the gap widening even further? Oh, isn't this our future sea god, Ninrangrong? What's wrong? Is your reward going to far exceed ours? Du Yuyan judged the situation from her expression and quickly came over to seek revenge. Ninrangrong stared blankly at the sky, filled with despair. Zhu Xiuking slowly ascended the mountain, Wrong, don't worry. Since you're chosen by the gods, we won't let you suffer any losses. Even the reward of Sea God's affinity was half taken away. How can I be considered chosen by the gods? Ningrong wailed, immediately drawing laughter from the three. Just then, the sky suddenly changed color. Dark clouds rolled in, instantly covering the entire sky. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284. The second test ended just as it began. Sorry, my writing alarm didn't go off. Dark clouds loomed overhead, a tense atmosphere pervading the air. The seawater outside Mount Poseidon suddenly boiled, creating a sense of impending doom. Strange energies spread from the ring-shaped sea. Mount Poseidon burst into colorful light, and a golden beam shot into the sky, enveloping the surroundings. Images of light appeared in their minds. The message for the second trial, break through the ring-shaped blockade and reach the other side without killing the soul beast. Hearing the mission requirements, Zhu's Huking and Du Yuan instantly relaxed. The sudden change in the sky had made them think something terrible had happened. They had crossed the ring-shaped sea before, so what was so difficult about this? Ningrong looked at her mission requirements and looked at Li Sun with worry. Brother, my mission requires me not to use soul rings or soul skills. What about you? Don't worry, me too. Li Sun gave her a reassuring look. The real difficulty of this second trial lay with a demon soul great white shark, Little White. A normal soul master might struggle with their soul skills sealed, but he was different. Would release, Descent of the Tree World. Li Sun smiled, clapping his hands. Who said soul masters had to use soul rings to use skills? Vines and leaves sprouted from the seabed behind Li Sun, instantly ripping away the land lacking the light of the sea god. Layers of undulating green vegetation surged like ocean waves, rushing towards the ring-shaped sea with unparalleled momentum. Poseidon, watching the scene from high above, had a strange look in her eyes. Although she didn't know the specific requirements of Li Sun's test, she could tell that he hadn't used any soul ring skills. Soul ring skills were the foundation of a soul master's power, yet Li Sun could unleash such a wide-range attack with just soul power, which immediately piqued her interest. Splash, splash. Seawater and greenery intertwined, creating waves tens of meters high, heavy sounds reaching the ears of every creature in the area. Lord Sea God. If I limit my cultivation and only try to block, I can't stop him at all. Little White looked up from the sea. As long as no one is killed, a short voice appeared in Xiaobei's mind. She was startled, then joy welled up in her heart, and a huge tail slapped happily. The sea god was speaking to her. Xiaobei looked happily towards the shore. Since it was the sea god's request, she would play with these humans. The huge tail stirred up an undercurrent, carrying a large amount of seawater towards the shore. A huge wave rose, a 20-meter-high wave, carrying a destructive aura as it swept towards Sea God Mountain. Boom! The azure blue overshadowed the green, and the seawater, with unparalleled power, slammed the vines against the invisible membrane of Sea God Mountain. The powerful force shattered the branches and vines, which floated everywhere like marine debris. Some soul beasts in the sea were also affected. Those with slightly weaker strength were instantly crushed into fish paste by the two forces. I didn't kill them. Li Sun looked up, quickly declaring that he wouldn't take the blame, while pondering his next move. Although Xiaobei doesn't possess the illustrious bloodline of other 100,000-year-old soul beasts, her strength should increase by about 30% in the sea. Li Sun estimated that her strength was roughly equivalent to that of a Titan giant ape. But only in the context of fighting soul masters in the sea. Soul power slowly surged from her body. The branches and vines scattered by the waves on the sea surface gradually gathered together, which Xiaobei didn't notice at first. Until the underwater vision suddenly darkened, the vines began to grow rapidly and connect, completely obscuring the sea surface along the shore, while wisps of electricity flickered on the vines. Any sea soul beasts that didn't understand were instantly electrocuted upon approaching, although not in mortal danger. Their bodies convulsed and sank to the bottom of the sea. Electric fish? The word inexplicably appeared in Xiaobei's mind, and she immediately flew into rage. Her body spun rapidly, creating a huge whirlpool in the sea, while blue ripples, like water blades, appeared and disappeared within the whirlpool. The vines that had been obscuring her view were shattered, and sunlight once again illuminated the sea. But before Xiaobei could even feel happy, she saw a wooden figure standing on the shore, 3 times her size. Whoosh! With a wave of its hand, the wooden figure hurled 3 figures, instantly transporting them to the other side. Xiaobei was stunned for a moment, then her anger flared. Dark red teeth appeared before her, and she fired them at the wooden figure on the shore. The shark fangs pierced through the wooden figure instantly, leaving hollow holes in its body. The wooden figure seemed to lose its balance and tilted towards the sea. Boom! Its massive body crashed into the sea with a deafening roar, and the seawater surged to both sides. Xiaobei quickly dodged to one side. Just then, a figure flashed out from behind the wooden figure's head, leaping to the other side in the blink of an eye. You cheated! Xiaobei angrily surfaced and shouted at Li Sun. Li Sun laughed. The assessment only said we had to break through the blockade, but it didn't specify the method. Did you expect me to fight you head-on? Xiaobei was speechless. With its cultivation level comparable to level 95 Titled Douluo, it was clear it was no match for this human who was only around level 80. Alright then, you win. Xiaobei reluctantly slapped the sea with its tail, and with a flash of light, transformed into a humanoid girl and landed on the shore. She had long, sky blue hair and wore a white leather outfit that perfectly accentuated her figure. Although slightly inferior to Zhu Xiuqing and the others, she was still a stunning beauty with exotic charm. I was planning to play with you, but I didn't expect the assessment to end so quickly. I wonder if Lord Sea God will think I'm useless. Xiaobei pouted, circling Li Sun once. Don't worry, this is only the second assessment. Maybe we'll have to work together later, Li Sun reassured it. Xiaobei was the sea god's mount. If Rongrong or he himself successfully inherited the sea god's position, this creature would become his subordinate. Li Sun was lenient towards the soul beasts of his own faction and wouldn't harbor any ill intentions for a 100,000-year soul ring. Li Sun then chatted briefly with Xiaobei, letting it get acquainted with its leader. Just then, 4 beams of light simultaneously shone from Li Sun and the others' foreheads. The combination of wisdom and strength led the companions through the blockade of the 100,000-year-old demon soul great white shark. Sea God affinity increased by 2.5%, total affinity increased by 5%. Li Sun wasn't surprised by this reward, and Ningrongrong finally accepted the reality with resignation, completely dejected. With this reward, Du Yuan's first 4 soul rings all turned purple, which she proudly showed off in front of Ningrongrong. Ningrongrong was exasperated. What are you so smug about? Even if you get more rewards, I'll still be the one who becomes a god on the end. It's different. After I get the sea god's reward, I can get another reward when I take the test at another god's place. Du Yuan covered her mouth and chuckled. Ningrongrong was silent for a long time, then looked at Li Sun. Brother, do you think we can get through the test at another god's place? Probably not. After all, the sea god still has some influence. Next came the title body refinement, which Li Sun found insane. 12 hours long, it was completely inhuman. Fortunately, he had healing abilities, which not only allowed him to withstand the pressure, but also helped Ningrongrong and Du Yuan suffer less. Time passed day by day on Sea God Island, while on the mainland, storms were brewing. Chapter 285 Tang Sen, Teacher, I don't blame you. Martial Soul City, the land of angelic inheritance. Qian Renxue, oblivious to the passage of time outside, wearily reached out and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth with her sleeve, taking another difficult step upwards. She was now only half a step away from the final step, but her body had reached its limit. However, thinking of Li Sun's arrogant demeanor before her, a surge of strength welled up within her, propelling her to the top of the 333 steps. Golden light scattered across the land of inheritance, like a divine miracle. Bathed in the divine light, Qian Renxue's fatigue and injuries rapidly subsided, and streams of pure soul power surged into her body. Angelic 9 trials. First trial, ascending to the divine rank, passed. Reward, level 3 soul power, 5% angelic god affinity. Feeling the surging power within her, Qian Renxue's face lit up with joy. She hadn't expected the divine trial rewards to be so generous. With these 3 levels of soul power, she had now reached level 77. She could catch up. After glancing at the content of the second test, Qian Renxue's eyes flashed, and a smirk appeared on her crimson lips. I'll teach you a lesson you won't forget. At the same time, in a soul-hunting forest within the Starfall Empire. Such places, where soul beasts are artificially migrated and kept in captivity, are common on the continent, mostly established jointly by the Spirit Hall and the two great empires, serving as a welfare program for the common people. Each entry requires only a small amount of gold soul coins or a Spirit Hall token. Tang San was currently in a soul hunting forest not far from Dragon Rising City within the Starfall Empire. The second test of the Rakshasa god required him to devour 500 soul beasts, but it didn't specify the year. Finally finished, Tang San smiled slightly. As the last trace of life force entered his body, the blue-silver grass discarded the desiccated soul beasts. With a mutation of the blue-silver grass, he gradually used it more frequently. Compared to the 8 spider lances, the blue-silver grass converted life force much faster, making it his primary method for increasing soul power. While the 8 spider lances can also convert life force into soul power, the conversion speed is slow and has an upper limit. Therefore, he currently only uses the 8 spider lances as a path to improve his physical attributes. Using these two abilities in combination allows for simultaneous improvement. Rakshasa God's second trial, devouring 500 soul beasts completed. Due to the low quality of the task completion, the reward is a 500-year increase in the soul ring limit. A grand divine voice resounded in Tang San's mind, causing him to frown. The quality of the task completion is low? Does exceeding the task completion requirement result in other rewards? No wonder there was no reward for soul power level this time. Thinking of this, Tang San couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Originally, he wanted to complete the task easily, but unexpectedly, he lost an opportunity to improve. However, regret aside, although he devoured low-level soul beasts, with the support of the large number, his soul power had now reached level 70. It could be considered a gain in itself. Tang San comforted himself. As a gray-black aura enveloped him, a huge amount of energy surged into his body, and Tang San saw with his own eyes that the first 2 soul rings of his blue-silver grass turned purple. A joy rose in his heart, a sense of satisfaction from the improvement in strength. Including the first assessment, each of his spirit rings has now increased by 600 years. His first spirit ring is 1,000 years old. This must be unique on the continent. Tang San's eyes shone brightly, a smile playing on his lips. In a void at the edge of the god realm, the Rakshasa goddess sensed Tang San's current state of mind through her divine sense and curled her lip. Her intention for the second assessment was to make Tang San break his agreement with the starred-out Great Forest, causing him inner conflict and guilt, to see if she could change his personality. However, she hadn't expected Tang San to seize upon a loophole in her mission and even complete it by trickery, which made her somewhat unhappy. If this continued, even Bibi Dong would be more entertaining than Tang San. The Rakshasa goddess lay back in her soft chair, her finger first touching the void, and a speck of gray-black light instantly pierced through it. However, Tang San's level has increased quite quickly, and he's much calmer than Bibi Dong in adversity. At this rate, he might catch up to Bibi Dong's cultivation level. It would be a waste to just throw him away. I'd like to see what you'll do when you see this mission. The Rakshasa god chuckled, but his gaze inadvertently swept over Seagoat Island, and his smile froze. If only he had influenced that kid back then, he could not only have angered the Azure god, but also gained a good seedling. Just a little short. In the lower realm, just as Tang San was immersed in the joy of his harvest, a divine voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Rakshasa god's trial, third test, the god's apostle cannot be deceived. Defeat the mediocre master Xiaogang without using your martial soul, and walk your own unique path. Tang San stared at this mission, momentarily stunned. He had already passed the Rakshasa god's trial twice. The enormous gains allowed him to conclude that the divine test was real, and the god was real. But this mission left him somewhat bewildered. Although his relationship with Xiaogang was strained, and some of Xiaogang's theories had been refuted by him and Li Sun, the help Xiaogang had given him was undeniable. The soul tool, the living conditions far exceeding those of Holy Soul Village, and the way he had been taken out of that small town, even if he wouldn't admit it, he still remembered the scene of him kowtowing to Xiaogang as a child. Although Xiaogang had led him astray in his cultivation, it was undeniable that without Xiaogang, his situation might have been very different, perhaps even worse than it was now. Because his father had been so despondent back then. Tang San sighed inwardly. The late autumn sunset was the afterglow of the sun, the autumn wind rustled the leaves, and warmth was slowly fading. Tang San slowly sat down against a lone bamboo, his heart constantly struggling, agonizing over this all afternoon. Teacher Li Sun, Clear Sky Sect, Spirit Hall, the sky gradually darkened. The Soul Hunter forest at dusk was dark and silent, like a ferocious beast ready to devour its prey at any moment. Tang-san slowly rose, dusted himself off, and turned to look at Guzu behind him. Teacher did indeed affect my state of mind at one point. This must be what Taoists often call the inner demon, he sighed. As a member of the Tang clan, I shouldn't be troubled by such things. I should forge my own path in this world. Teacher, we were master and disciple for a time. Although you led me astray, I don't blame you. It's just that our fate has run its course, and I have enemies I must face. Star Luo Empire, Luo Fang Town. This place is very close to the border of Yongdao. Due to the tense relationship between the two empires in the past 2 years, the people living here have always been filled with a sense of tension. However, because it is close to the starred out Great Forest, which produces abundant resources, everyone is afraid but reluctant to leave. Xiaogang, because he needs to study data, has also not chosen to leave this place. He has now lost everything. Xiao-san, Liu Erlong, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Clan, Shrek Academy, and Bibi Dong. With these relationships fading away, he had to do everything himself. But what could a level 29 Great Soul Master achieve alone? He couldn't defeat higher-level soul beasts, and his research was either ridiculed or dismissed as fraudulent. Therefore, his research progressed very poorly. Chapter 286 God does not do meaningless things. Hey! Isn't this master? How's your invincible theory research going? A teacher walked out of the classroom and happened to see Xiaogang hurrying by. Of course. With master's abilities, he should have already figured out the 11th of the 10 competitive advantages of a martial soul core. Someone nearby looked over and laughed. Even some children covered their mouths and snickered, whispering and pointing at Xiaogang. However, although it was teasing, none of the students dared to embarrass Xiaogang in public. After all, this was a world where strength reigned supreme. Even if Xiaogang was weak, he was still a level 29 Great Soul Master. There was a huge gap between him and these newly awakened children and commoners. Xiaogang ignored them, not because he was used to it, but because he had encountered similar situations back at Nodding Academy, although he had Nodding as a friend, so the situation was slightly better. Xiaogang ignored the laughter from the outside world, his mind completely absorbed in his own thoughts. He had indeed been researching new theories recently and had made some progress, but the lack of people to put them into practice had stalled his progress. However, he had recently discovered a promising talent. Although his innate soul power was only level 6, his mutated bamboo martial soul had great potential for expansion. He planned to replicate his nearly 2 years of research on Li Sun onto that child. However, he was now facing a problem. Because of his bad reputation in the town, the child's parents were unwilling to entrust their child to his teaching. Xiaogang frowned, constantly pondering what to do next. Teacher, long time no see. Suddenly, a voice so familiar it was almost unbearable came from ahead. Xiaogang froze, disbelief flashing in his eyes, before he abruptly looked up. Xiao-san. What brings you here? Xiaogang's voice trembled slightly, his eyes revealing disbelief. Since the start of the Soul Master competition, their relationship had gradually deteriorated, even small disagreements were often magnified, but Xiaogang was powerless to change it. When Xiaogang learned that the Clear Sky sect had re-emerged and arrived in the Starfall Empire, he considered visiting them, but reason prevailed. He never expected his beloved disciple to find him without any prior contact. Teacher, you haven't changed, just more wrinkles and more gray hair. Tang Sam stood at the door of Xiaogang's dormitory, smiling at him like a long-lost relative. Ah, I've gotten old, but you've grown quite a bit, and your appearance has changed too. You're a handsome young man now. Xiaogang looked at the jet-black-haired youth before him, his eyes slightly moist. In this life, besides living, nothing is more about fame and fortune. Although he, Xiaogang, had taught and mentored many, most of his disciples were only in name. He hadn't cared much about the others in Shrek Academy. But Tang San was different. He was his personal disciple, carrying his expectations, and he had promised to vindicate him. Although the Blue Lightning Tyrant clan was no longer around, the two seemed to have opened a floodgate of conversation, forgetting all the unpleasantness of the past, chatting as casually as before. It was as if they wanted to finish expressing all the more than 3 years of separation at once. But even the deepest longing had finally come to an end. When the topic inevitably reached its conclusion, Tang San changed the subject. Teacher, I have something I'd like to ask you to do, little Sen. Feel free to ask if you need anything. Yu Xiaogang's stiff face broke into a smile upon hearing this. He was afraid that Tang San wouldn't need him. As long as he still had value, he wouldn't be forgotten. Teacher, I want to have a match with you. Tang San's previous jovial demeanor changed, and he said seriously, I won't use my soul power or soul rings. What? Yu Xiaogang thought he had misheard, his smile freezing on his face as he stared at Tang San in astonishment. You mean you want to have a soul duel with me? You can understand it that way, but don't worry, for the sake of fairness, I can refrain from using my martial soul. We'll stop short of a fight. Tang San smiled and nodded slightly. But this scene, reflected in Yu Xiaogang's eyes, was like a demon's mockery. Yu Xiaogang's brain seemed to have been struck by lightning, his whole body trembling slightly. He pointed at Tang San, opened his mouth, but couldn't utter a single word for a long time. Teacher, this is my final request to you, whether you agree or not. Tang San had anticipated this, calmly looking at Yu Xiaogang, awaiting his reply. I knew why you suddenly came to my door. So you wanted to humiliate me. Enraged, Yu Xiaogang's face flushed red, his eyes seeming to spit fire. I thought you were a grateful person, but I never expected you to have dropped your pretense so soon. Haha, it really proves my father's saying, you can see a person's future from the age of 3. I truly regret not waking up sooner. Thank goodness my father reminded me like that. He recalled the casual conversation he had with Yu Yuanzhen at Shrek Academy. Yu Xiaogang threw his head back and laughed, 2 lines of tears sliding down his face. So what do you gain from humiliating me? Prove you're stronger than me? Prove my theory is wrong. Tang San looked at Yu Xiaogang's hysterical state and shook his head in disappointment. Suddenly, he felt that the once towering figure in his heart had completely vanished. It's not an insult. If it weren't for the need, we might never have met again in this life. But because of you, my state of mind has become problematic. Tang San slowly walked towards Yu Xiaogang. It's because of you that I've been trapped in regret for choosing the wrong spirit ring all these years. And it's also because of your series of words that I've gone further and further down the wrong path. A dark purple blue silver grass quietly appeared in Tang San's hand. You always say that blue silver grass is a useless spirit, but you forget that even if there are advantages and disadvantages between twin spirits, there shouldn't be too much of a difference. And my blue silver grass is actually no weaker than the clear sky hammer. Tang San immediately recounted Yin's story, and then explained the whole story of the blue silver grass's mutation. Do you have anything else to say, teacher? Yu Xiaogang stared straight at the dark purple blue silver grass, his lips trembling. How could this be? Both Tang San's spirit beast mother and the mutation of the blue silver grass had brought him a huge shock. If what Tang San said was true, then some of the 10 core competencies of his spirit would have to be rewritten. That's just how it is. Tang San stopped 10 meters away from Yu Xiaogang, extending his hand in a gesture of invitation. What I need to do now is to achieve a flawless state of mind. Haha, what a fine flawed state of mind. Flawless state of mind. Seeing Tang San's serious expression, Yu Xiaogang suddenly burst into laughter, tears streaming down his face. Since you blame all these mistakes on me, then let's do it. After speaking, Yu Xiaogang closed his eyes tightly, tilted his head back, and struck a pose as if offering his neck for execution. Too ugly. Tang San shook his head in disappointment, feeling somewhat dejected. This situation was far from the carefree farewell he had envisioned. However, he had said what needed to be said. He would leave the right and wrong to Yu Xiaogang to ponder. With a ghostly blur beneath his feet, Tang San suddenly transformed into a blur, appearing behind Yu Xiaogang in the blink of an eye. With a swift chop, Yu Xiaogang collapsed to the ground. When he saw Yu Xiaogang fall, Tang San felt a pang of melancholy. But as time passed, a certain emptiness in his heart was filled, and a sense of wonder welled up within him. Was he really that weak? Guilt vanished, replaced by anger. Tang San suddenly felt resentful of himself for making the hasty decision to become Li Sun's disciple. He constantly reflected on his past self, reconciling with his former self, and gradually felt as if his soul had been elevated. The slight inferiority complex stemming from being repeatedly crushed by Li Sun also disappeared. Only a great teacher can produce a great student. God doesn't do meaningless things. Is this the true purpose of the divine test? Tang San gazed at the azure sky. Chapter 287. The Haoshan sect has no way to avoid it. Tang San had just finished his sigh when he realized something was wrong, because the expected message that the divine trial was over hadn't arrived. What happened? Tang San frowned, looking at Yu Xiaogang, who had fainted on the ground. Could it be because Yu Xiaogang didn't fight back? Or did I misinterpret the mission requirements? Defeat. Tang San casually found a step to sit on and began to re-examine the mission requirements, while also waiting for Yu Xiaogang to wake up. When Yu Xiaogang slowly awoke, the first thing he saw was Tang San sitting not far from him. Humiliation, disbelief, various negative emotions swirled within him. Yu Xiaogang's chest heaved violently. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Why haven't you left yet? Tang San turned his head to look at Yu Xiaogang, who was feigning death on the ground, and chuckled. That wasn't a real battle, so we need to have another one, you beast. Yu Xiaogang suddenly opened his eyes, staring at Tang San in astonishment. He hadn't expected Tang San to humiliate him once already. Considering you did help me a little before, I can forgive you this time. But if you offend me again, don't blame me for disregarding our past relationship. A cold glint flashed in Tang San's eyes. After a long while, Tang San left, leaving Yu Xiaogang lying on the ground with empty eyes, tears streaming down his face. He hadn't expected Tang San to be so ruthless and vicious, devouring his soul power to level 19. Humiliation. This was a naked humiliation. Time flies, and almost another year has passed. The Council Hall of the Heaven Dao Imperial Palace is currently discussing a major event that could change the landscape of the continent. Qian Renxue sits high on her throne, quietly listening to the ministers recount the preparations of the past few years. After 2 years of stockpiling grain, we have enough to sustain Heaven Dao in the upcoming war. Military pay and equipment are also in place. The Minister of Finance lowered his head, his words full of confidence. Since the death of Emperor Zuyi, the Heaven Dao Empire had undergone a complete overhaul, from nobles to ministers. Those outsiders who could still stand in this hall were either close to the 7 treasure glazed tile school or truly capable pragmatists. Li Sun and Qian Renxue weren't bloodthirsty. Instead of purging these people, they slowly passed on their ideas to achieve internal unity. As the finance minister finished speaking, Yang Wudi stepped forward. 100,000 vanguard troops have been assembled on the Barak border, ready to launch an attack at any time. The number of people exceeds 10,000, and war isn't a game. Mobilizing 1 million troops to press on a single border is a fantasy. A country that can mobilize half its military force without fundamentally damaging itself is already a sign of wealth. Then let's go to war. Qian Renxue was very satisfied with the unity of her subjects. When she returned to Tiandao, she heard that Bibi Dong was in seclusion and hadn't appeared for some time. Now that no one was hindering her, it was time for her to take a big bite out of Xingluo. With a series of orders issued, Tiandao officially entered a tense moment. Those who aspired to achieve great things also began to respond actively. The Douluo Continent had been quiet for too long. The 500,000-strong army surged forward, and the Starluo forces stationed on the border collapsed before they could even mount an effective resistance. Kingdoms and duchies within the Starluo Empire bordering Barak province trembled in fear. The Starluo Empire. The Starluo Emperor rose angrily from his throne. Tiandao seems to have forgotten that without the Spirit Hall acting as a check and balance, they would have long been annihilated by my Starluo's iron cavalry. Yet they dare to launch a preemptive attack. Immediately dispatch troops from the Yunluo Duchy and Hadrian Kingdom to reinforce them. We must crush the Tiandao army within the territory of the Chris Kingdom in one fell swoop. Sect Master Tang, I'm leaving the 7 treasure glazed tile school to you. I heard that Sword Douluo has broken through to level 98. If he finds it difficult, I will send some powerful members of my clan to assist him. Your Majesty, rest assured. Although Sword Douluo's cultivation is 1 level higher than mine, how could my Clear Sky sect, which has firmly held the position of the continent's #1 sect, not have methods to overcome the strong with the weak? Tang Xiao felt a heaviness in his heart, but his face remained impassive. Very well, the Starluo Emperor suddenly unleashed his aura, a Titled Douluo's pressure filing the entire hall. Since Heaven Dao wants to fight, then let them fight. I want to see how their white goose martial soul can fight a tiger. Although the Starluo Empire was also an imperial system, the competition was brutal. Anyone who could inherit the throne undoubtedly possessed both talent and strength, and the Starluo Emperor, as the victor of the previous generation, naturally possessed extraordinary strength. While there were no Titled Douluo level experts among the collateral branches, there were still some Soul Saints and Soul Douluos. Coupled with their martial soul fusion technique with the Zhu family, They could rival some experts. Commands were issued one after another, and the hall instantly became solemn and imposing. This was the power of the Douluo Empire's bloody system. Just then, a soldier covered in dust was brought into the hall. Urgent report from the relay station. A urgent message has arrived from the Yunluo Kingdom. The kingdom of Chris has been occupied by Xiandao. What? The hall erupted into chaos instantly, a cacophony of voices buzzing through the air. Even the Douluo Emperor and Tang Xiao were incredulous. The Douluo capital was about 20 days' journey from the border country, but for the Min clan, it would only take a day or a few hours, depending on the messenger's cultivation level. But they had just learned of the Xiandao Empire's advance and then received this devastating news, meaning that Xiandao had annexed a kingdom in just 2 days. Although they had the advantage in intelligence transmission speed, their troops couldn't keep up with the speed of support, which was also due to the recent border standoffs that had made Douluo complacent. Looking at the chaotic scene below, the Douluo Emperor felt only frustration. The matter is settled. There's no point in discussing it further now. Send out the troops. Tang Xiao's eyes flashed, and he nodded. After leaving the court, he quickly returned to the Haoshan sect's headquarters. As the #1 sect on the continent, the Douluo Emperor did not neglect the Clear Sky sect when he learned of their arrival, even arranging for their headquarters in Douluo City to be located in a prime location. However, Tang Xiao had no interest in appreciating the magnificent and luxurious architecture and went straight to the council hall. Soon after, Tang Hao and a group of elders entered. As members of the pinnacle of the continent, they had anticipated this situation, and their only surprise was the speed of the Heavenly Dao Army's advance. What should we do, Sect Master? Should we withdraw from this mess? The seventh elder's expression was grave. He had experienced the Great War between the Clear Sky sect and the Spirit Hall and knew the losses they would face if they participated in the war between the two empires. I also do not agree with getting involved. If the Spirit Hall takes the opportunity to attack, we may be put on the defensive. The third elder looked around and raised his hand. Hearing this, two more elders voiced their agreement. Our Clear Sky sect has only recently begun to recover after years of recuperation. We should not suffer unnecessary losses because of the conflict between the two empires. Elder, what do you think? Tang Xiao looked at Tang Ming, who remained calmly seated. The Grand Elder stroked his beard, his face showing no concern for the war. I'd like to hear the sect master's opinion first. Seeing that the Grand Elder didn't immediately object, Tang Xiao nodded. I think the Haoshan sect should participate. Elders, please hear me out. Tang Xiao quickly raised his hand to stop the elders from getting emotional. I have two reasons for saying this. First, our Haoshan sect has been in seclusion for too long, so long that some have forgotten the power of the continent's #1 martial spirit. Second, if we flee this time, there will be no place on the continent for us to recuperate. Rather than saying I want war, it's more accurate to say that our Haoshan sect has no other choice but to go. Hearing this, the elders fell silent, some looking at Tang Xiao. They were well aware of what Tang Xiao was saying. After all, they had already abandoned allies once. But compared to reputation, life and the future of the sect were sometimes just as important. For a moment, the council hall was filled with a difficult decision. Just then, Elder Tang Ming suddenly spoke up. I agree with the sect master's opinion, but we have slight differences on some details. The war between the two great empires won't be decided in a day. If things become unfavorable for us, no one will say anything if we withdraw. With the sect master and the elder in agreement, the others couldn't object. However, as the meeting was about to adjourn, the seventh elder suddenly turned his attention to Tang Hao. Tang Hao, although your strength has declined somewhat, you are still stronger than many disciples. I think you should also participate in the war. Chapter 288 Blitzkrieg Douluo. The Haoshan sect's council hall fell into a brief silence after the seventh elder's sudden speech. While his words contained an element of revenge, they were also true. Although Tang Hao was now disabled, he still possessed level 80 cultivation, and with his 2 inherited soul bones and the Haoshan secret technique, he was completely fearless against ordinary level 90 titled cultivators. However, such behavior was ultimately unappealing to outsiders. And sometimes, one had to consider the feelings of the sect's rising generation. Tang San, as the undisputed #1 of the new generation of the Haoshan sect, would undoubtedly feel if he saw his disabled father forced onto the battlefield. The Heaven Dao Empire and the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School are strong, but not strong enough to force the Haoshan sect to expend all its resources to resist them. Seventh Elder, don't use this as an excuse, Tang Xiao said, his face darkening. These elders usually made things difficult for Hao Di. After all, his brother had almost destroyed the entire sect, but this had already happened, and a long time had passed. Dwelling on it wouldn't change anything. The dead are gone, but the living are invaluable. Now that Hao Di's body is crippled and his strength has declined significantly, he might not be able to escape if he's targeted on the battlefield. Sect Master, the seventh elder said, although Tang Hao's strength is damaged, he's still far stronger than the average disciple. If the disciples go out to fight but think that someone is hiding in the rear living a peaceful life, what do you think they'll think? The seventh elder wasn't surprised by Tang Xiao's protection. The two were brothers, and their closeness was obvious. However, he wasn't afraid at all. The Haotian sect was a family sect, primarily based on Tang Chen's lineage, but their collateral branches also had a say. If Tang Xiao had Tang Chen's strength, it would be fine, but unfortunately, he didn't. The Haotian sect's current situation was something they had all worked together to maintain. Tang Xiao was furious and about to speak when Tang Hao interrupted him with a raised hand. Brother, seventh elder is right. Although my strength has declined, I am not afraid of a title like seventh elder. Now is the time when the sect needs manpower, and I should also do my part to make up for my past mistakes. The seventh elder heard Tang Hao's words of belittling him and was about to make a sarcastic remark, but was stopped by someone next to him. Although he didn't want Tang Hao to take risks, the words had already been spoken, and even as the sect leader, he couldn't change his mind. Tang Xiao looked around, observing the expressions of the elders, and sighed. All right then, but brother Hao, you must be careful and not be reckless. Let's go. The kingdom of Chris was the gateway to the Starluo Empire and the kingdom closest to Yondao. The Starluo Empire stationed 100,000 troops there, and together with the kingdom's own army, a total of 150,000 troops formed a defensive line against Yondao's attack. But faced with Yondao's sudden attack, they collapsed at the first blow. Defeated like a mountain was indeed a verb. Without suitable commanders and the ability to effectively enforce orders, even a large army is nothing more than a rabble. In just 7 days, this small country under the Starluo Empire was occupied by the Heavendao Empire. The capital, Chris City, became the Heavendao Empire's bridgehead for extending its reach into the Starluo Empire. While the people of Chris were shocked by this situation, they did not feel much resistance. This was mainly due to the region's strategic trading location and the flow of people. The former Chris Royal Palace had now become the Heavendao frontline command post. Ning Fengzi looked down at the map, but his face showed no joy at the victory. Qianjin, has there been any news from Elder Yang? Yang Qianjin coughed lightly and straightened his uniform. Reporting to the Grand Preceptor, Marshal Yang has already conquered the kingdom of Paraj and is marching towards the kingdom of Yunluo. I expect to occupy it tomorrow, you child, no need for such formality. Just act as usual. Seeing Yang Qianjin's rigid manner, Ning Fengzi chuckled. Send someone back to order the imperial reinforcements to advance directly towards the Duchy of Yunluo and replace Elder Yang's royal guard. The Blitzkrieg has achieved its best results. Now it's a test of endurance. Yes, sir. Yang Qianjin respectfully saluted and then withdrew. Bone Douluo chuckled at the rigid scene. This kid has managed Barak province for a few years now, and he's quite capable, probably influenced by Elder Yang. Ning Fengzi shook his head with a smile. After gaining power, Yang Wudi, this rough-around-the-edges guy, was said to be extremely strict with his family's children. In his words, if you didn't want to be a nobleman, you'd better leave home and make room for the good guys. The two chatted for a few more minutes before getting down to business. How's Uncle Jian doing? Bone Douluo shook his head. He hasn't returned yet. I guess the Starluo reinforcements haven't arrived, or they haven't discovered their whereabouts. The Kingdom of Chris, the Duchy of Yunluo, and the Kingdom of Paraj are three small countries near Barak province. Taking this place would directly border the Anthony province, controlled by the Starluo Empire. Anthony province, as a directly administered territory of the empire, has its capital in Antonio City, but on the outskirts of the provincial capital lies a more famous city, Jackson City, known as the Steel Capital. The headquarters of the renowned Blacksmiths Association is located here. There are rumors on the continent that the Blacksmiths Association is an organization affiliated with a Haotian sect, but this has never been confirmed. It wasn't until the Haotian sect descended upon the Starluo Empire that the divine craftsman Lu Gao announced his allegiance. Because Tang San's hidden weapons were countered by the 7 treasure glazed tile school, He had handed over most of the hidden weapon blueprints to the Blacksmith Association. Although the finished hidden weapons eventually flowed into the official arsenal, he still profited steadily from them. However, the development of hidden weapons in the Star Luo region was relatively late, and it lacked the research and development spirit of the 7 Treasure Weapon Factory. Although it had the Blacksmith Association as a support, its stockpile of hidden weapons was not very large. The Heaven Dao Empire's next target was this place, firstly to cut off the enemy's military equipment, and secondly to increase its strategic depth. As long as this provincial capital was occupied, half of the Star Luo Empire's territory would be exposed to Heaven Dao's sight. I wonder if Xiao Sun and Poison Elder have received the news. Ning Fengzi couldn't help but feel a little worried. The reason why Heaven Dao launched an attack at this time was entirely due to timing. Not only was the Star Luo Empire caught off guard, but they themselves were not fully prepared. It was because Bibi Dong's seclusion this time was of unknown duration, and any gains made during this period would be a bonus. Seagate Island, one of the theme parks, the raging waves of despair. Li Sun was being forced to complete his 365-day daily hard control. Enduring the pounding of the tides for 12 hours had little effect on him, as his physique already far exceeded the standards required for the divine test. Having completed his daily requirement, Li Sun descended the sunken silver pillar and began another task, Team Doctor. He gathered his soul power in his hands, rubbed them together to warm them, and then massaged Ning Rongrong for the injuries caused by the waves. As a 9th grade examiner, Ning Rongrong and Li Sun needed to endure the same amount of time, but her physical condition wouldn't allow her to continue for long. Fortunately, with Li Sun by her side, she wasn't in too much danger, and although the process was difficult and painful, she persevered. Li Sun was always fair, although Zhu Huqing repeatedly refused, he still gave her a proper massage. As for Du Guyan, she was even more eager than Li Sun. Just then, Du Gubo walked over from a distance. Chapter 289 The Mysterious Little Bottle. Du Guyan felt the burning hands on her back disappear and opened her eyes in confusion. She saw Du Gubo standing in the distance, smiling, watching her. Seeing that her grandfather had ruined her plans, Du Guyan pouted, "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" Du Gubo, realizing the timing might be inappropriate, quickly coaxed, "Grandpa didn't mean to disturb you, I just have something to discuss with Li Sun." "What is it, Grandpa Dugu?" Li Sun knew Du Gubo must have something important to say and quickly stepped forward. The sect leader sent a message. Tian Dao has officially launched an attack on Xingluo and has already achieved some results. But this is only temporary. To maintain their current advantage, they need to withstand the continuous counterattacks from Haoshan sect and Xingluo. I need to go back. You all be careful here. Du Gubo was increasingly satisfied with Li Sun. Li Sun, now 18, possessed a striking and spirited air. Dressed in a pristine white outfit, he exuded vitality, and his soul power was nearing the titled realm. He truly was a fine young man to be a grandson-in-law. Has it already begun? This was all planned, so Li Sun wasn't surprised. After a moment's thought, he said, "Grandpa Dugu, when you return, try not to attack civilians and ordinary soldiers. Just restrict the strong men of the Star Luo side." "Why?" "With my current strength, using poison will greatly increase the Heavenly Dao Army's attack speed," Du Gubo asked, puzzled. He was a level 95 Titled Douluo, possessing water attribute attacks. Compared to poison gas, using water to carry poison was more lethal and easier to control. He could easily wipe out a city with a light drain. "This is for your own good, and also for the sake of those innocent people," Li Sun explained. "Don't be fooled by the hundreds of thousands of troops that the two great empires often wage war against each other. The final death toll might not even be as high as the number you would kill in a single city. Although we belong to two different countries, if you act too ruthlessly, you'll be criticized by future generations." It wasn't that Li Sun was acting out of kindness, but rather that the outcome of this war had little to do with ordinary people. When one of them became a god and gained absolute power, all of this would end. What they needed to do now was simply to slow down Bibi Dong's progress in her divine examination. Li Sun naturally wouldn't allow Du Gubo to harm ordinary people like Tang San did. Du Gubo felt a warmth in his heart upon hearing this. He was truly worthy of being his future grandson-in-law, even considering his reputation. "I know what to do. You and Yan Yan can stay here and cultivate in peace." After saying this, Du Gubo chatted with Du Guyan for a while, then, when Li Sun wasn't looking, secretly slipped a mysterious small bottle into her hand. It's unclear what Douluo whispered in Du Yan's ear, but it made her blush and let out a coquettish sigh. Seeing his granddaughter, though feigning strength, secretly put away the small bottle, Douluo laughed heartily and turned to leave in high spirits. Li Sun looked at Douluo, puzzled. What's so exciting about going to the battlefield? The Tide body tempering assessment was ending in 3 days, followed by the hunt for the demonic tiger whale horde. Zhu Xiuking's cultivation had already reached level 72 months ago, and Li Sun, considering the 100,000-year soul ring, had deliberately made her wait until now. When Zhu Xiuking absorbed the divinely bestowed soul ring, she sacrificed 2 lives to upgrade her 6th soul ring to 81,000 years. Now, after another year of Tide body tempering, her physical attributes had improved further, and her endurance should be even stronger. Having reached this point, staying on Seagoat Island was pointless, so Li Sun decided to help Zhu Xiuking obtain the soul ring and then return to the mainland. The divine test required completion within a year, rushing it was pointless, and failing to advance one's cultivation level could easily lead to being stuck at the Poseidon level. Having stayed on Seagoat Island for too long, he wanted to return to the mainland to see the world and prepare for the future. After obtaining the Killing God domain, the anticipated Azure divine test didn't appear, and now he and Ning Rongrong were sharing the Seagoat affinity reward. He couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. The Seagoat was a first-level deity, already inferior to God King. If their power was divided, it would negatively impact their strength. 3 days later, as the final tide receded, the rewards arrived as scheduled. Li Sun and Ning Rongrong unsurprisingly shared 15% of the Seagoat affinity reward. Zhu Xiuking, due to her level bottleneck, didn't see the 2 levels of soul power reward and remained at level 70. Du Yan's soul power, however, reached level 69, a significant boost for her. Brother, when will this end? Ning Rongrong cried out in anguish, thinking of her hard work in cultivation, only to find her cultivation level falling further and further behind Zhu Xiuking and Du Yan. She knew that even if she passed all the tests, she still needed to reach level 100 to become a god. But she was only level 65, a world away from level 100. Good things come to those who wait, Li Sun said, sizing Ning Rongrong up. You started later than Zhu Qing and the others, but haven't you grown a bit yet? Ning Rongrong thought for a while before understanding what Li Sun meant. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she quickly covered her chest. You're just bullying me. Li Sun's behavior had become increasingly bold over the past year, and the others, no longer children, naturally understood the implications. You don't appreciate kindness. Could you have grown so fast without me? Li Sun gestured with his hand in front of Ning Rongrong, demonstrating the growth process from large to small. Pa. Shameless. Ning Rongrong's face turned bright red, and she slapped Li Sun's hand away, trying to run away. She instantly forgot her worries about the slow improvement in her strength. Unexpectedly, Li Sun grabbed her arm. Leave the door open for me tonight, I'll give you some extra help. His soft whisper was like a devil's murmur, and Ning Rongrong felt a tingling sensation rise from her tailbone, quickly spreading throughout her body, causing her to involuntarily clench her legs and tremble. Ning Rongrong's mind went blank. Thinking of what had happened last time, she didn't know what to say for a moment, and quickly lowered her head and ran to the side. Li Sun, seeing this, revealed a victorious smile. Over the years, due to his age, he had always been very restrained, often deepening his relationship with the 3 but always adhering to his bottom line. Now that shackle was finally removed, his recent work to desensitize Ning Rongrong and Zhu Xiuking had also had some effect. Li Sun remembered what Ning Rongrong had once said to him, so he decided to follow his senior's example. As for letting go of a woman, unless the Douluo Continent was destroyed. Zhu Xiuking and Du Yan exchanged a glance inadvertently. Girls are often more mature in matters of the heart, and Zhu Xiuking understood why Li Sun had become increasingly restless lately. Even Ning Rongrong had a feeling she knew better. However, no one dared to confront him directly, wanting to see what choice Li Sun would make. The content of the 4th trial of the Sea God was revealed, and after discussing it briefly, the group returned to their lodgings. After a year of tidal body tempering, they could finally have a proper day of rest. Li Sun glanced at the 3 women, a slight smile playing on his lips. Chapter 290. Leave the door open for me. Choice? What choice? After so many years together, Li Sun had a good grasp of the 3 women's psychology. He remembered talking about this kind of thing with Ning Rongrong when they were young, so he had been preparing for it all along. and in recent years, it had begun to show results. To raise a cat, you first need to stroke its fur. If you want to reach the point where you can manipulate it at will, you need to desensitize it first, gradually making it used to you through constant intimacy and reducing its resistance. This was also what he had been doing all along. The Douluo Continent was quiet in the dead of night. There were no entertainment facilities here, especially in a place like Seagoat Island. He walked lightly to Ning Rongrong's room, only to find the door tightly closed. "Didn't you leave the door open for me?" He narrowed his eyes, reached out and gently pushed the door. With a slight creak, the door slowly opened a crack. Li Sun smiled. The room was dark at the moment, and even the curtains were not drawn. The hazy moonlight seemed unwilling, using a bit of its power to penetrate the thin gauze and fall on the bed. It illuminated the figure tightly wrapped in the quilt. "Why is there someone here?" Li Sun walked to the bedside, squatted down, and gently poked the blanket. The round blanket trembled slightly, but didn't make a sound or move. Li Sun took off his outer garment and slowly lay down on the bed. "It's so cold on Seagoat Island at night. I wonder if sleeping here for a night will make me catch a cold." Ning Rongrong, hiding under the blanket, was speechless. It would be strange for a soul Douluo to catch a cold from the cold. Li Sun, lying beside her, continued to try to elicit her sympathy, but Ning Rongrong had already fallen for it before. She remained silent and unresponsive no matter what he said. Suddenly remembering Li Sun's hands that had been causing trouble recently, Ning Rongrong shuddered, her legs instinctively clamping together. Although somewhat precocious, Ning Rongrong didn't know what this feeling was. She only knew it was incredibly uncomfortable, yet also somewhat stimulating. However, compared to the discomfort, the pleasurable sensation lasted too short, making her subtly resistant. Just as Ning Rongrong was about to fall into daze, she suddenly felt a small piece of the blanket being pulled away by a strong force, and heard someone's shameless voice in her ear. "Rongrong, you're going too far. I've been talking to you for so long and you haven't even reacted. You have no empathy at all." Li Sun covered his belly button with a corner of the blanket, thought for a moment, and then decided he couldn't let it go, so he pulled it over a little more. "Here we go again." A look of panic flashed in Ning Rongrong's eyes. Knowing she couldn't escape it no matter what, she slowly poked her head out from under the blanket. Her eyes were watery as she looked at Li Sun. "This is my room. You can have a blanket in your own room, right? Huh? Is this your room?" Li Sun was taken aback, but quickly recovered. "I thought you were going to take over my room again like when we were kids." The room was quiet for a moment, with only the soft breathing of the two of them. But this peace only lasted a few minutes before Ning Rongrong felt those large hands starting to get restless. Suddenly, she felt an overwhelming regret for taking over Li Sun's dorm room when she was a kid. "Rongrong has really grown a lot," Li Sun remarked. "Brother, I'm feeling a little unwell." Ning Rongrong trembled, her eyes tightly shut, pushing Li Sun away forcefully. She remembered Li Sun always saying that he was the one who was truly suffering, so why was he acting differently today? "Brother, what are you going to do about Xiaogang and Douluo Yan?" Ning Rongrong's eyes were weary, filled with curiosity and nervousness. Her initial advantage made her feel a strange aversion to the other two. "Treat them equally." Seeing Ning Rongrong's wary gaze, Li Sun spoke without hesitation. You scoundrel." Ning Rongrong was furious, a thin mist instantly welling in her eyes, and she punched Li Sun's chest hard. She had originally thought she would get a different answer this time, but Li Sun still insisted on his long-held beliefs. Even though she was the one who started it all. "Rongrong, you might want me to be more monogamous, but have you considered your own health?" Li Sun thought for a moment, deciding to use the simplest and most practical method to persuade her. This method, though simple, commonplace, and ubiquitous, has proven successful to many predecessors, demonstrating its feasibility. "What constitution?" Ning Rongrong asked, puzzled, looking up at Li Sun. "You'll find out soon enough." Li Sun chuckled, his soul power surging in his hands to heal Ning Rongrong's newly appeared injuries. Feeling the warmth of the soul power coursing through her body, Ning Rongrong closed her eyes in enjoyment. She knew of Li Sun's healing abilities, but she didn't understand their connection to her needs. Her fatigue and pain vanished, and just as Ning Rongrong was feeling drowsy, Li Sun grinned mischievously. "Ah!" Ning Rongrong cried out, instinctively wrapping her arms around Li Sun's neck. Li Sun's healing abilities were strong, but his self-healing ability was even stronger. The combined restorative power of his various abilities made him seem like a war god. Only then did Ning Rongrong understand what Li Sun meant by constitution. However, this didn't stop her rebellious spirit. She felt that even if she had to endure it herself, she couldn't let Zhu Xiuqing and Du Yuyan have the chance. The light rain outside had been falling for almost 5 hours, and dawn would break in a couple more hours. Ninrongrong clutched her pillow, drowsiness and exhaustion washing over her. In her hazy state, she felt as if she were back in the divine examination. Although Li Sun could heal physical injuries and relieve fatigue, it wasn't a panacea. Mental exhaustion and deeper fatigue couldn't be remedied, she could only wait for recovery. Seeing Li Sun get up again, Ninrongrong's heart pounded, and she quickly begged, "Brother, can I rest for a while? The rain has stopped outside." "Alright, I still quite like the sound of rain." Li Sun used his spiritual power to admire the post-rain scenery through the window. Even the strongest support-type soul masters have their limits, incomparable to soul masters of other systems. However, Ninrongrong was quite determined, and even when she was so exhausted that she fell into deep sleep, she didn't give in. But what's done is done, and her refusal couldn't change the fact. After taking a shower, Li Sun took a new quilt to cover his pale body and folded the old quilt, placing it aside. She then lay down to sleep. At midday, the sun blazed high, evaporating the midnight rain. But the room remained damp. Opening the door to let in some fresh air, Li Sun slowly walked downstairs. Zhu Xiuqing and Du Yuyan were sitting in the hall, their eyes darted away when they saw Li Sun. The soundproofing in the rooms wasn't very good, and the noise from the night had kept them awake all night. More importantly, Ninrongrong's shouts were different from usual, making them constantly wonder what had happened. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291. Zhu Xiuqing is an honest person. The spacious living room fell silent for a moment. Du Yuyan, unlike her usual straightforward self, avoided eye contact, much like Zhu Xiuqing. Wasn't this typical empty talk? Li Sun chuckled at this, saying nothing, and went straight to sit between the two women. Wrong, how is she? Zhu Xiuqing's heart was filled with complex emotions, and she shifted uncomfortably. Although this was something she had expected, for some reason, Zhu Xiuqing felt uneasy. Logically, her upbringing should have instilled in her an open-mindedness, but when it actually happened, she found herself not as strong and selfless as she thought. Was it because her life was too comfortable, and she had become greedy? Zhu Xiuqing pondered silently. Wrong is fine, just a little tired. Li Sun leaned against Zhu Xiuqing's lap, but she probably won't be coming out tonight. Zhu Xiuqing shuddered, but didn't flinch. Li Sun turned her head, her gaze passing through her breasts to meet Zhu Xiuqing's eyes. He had planned to win over Ninrongrong first, but now that it had actually happened, he felt somewhat indebted to Zhu Xiuqing. Compared to Ninrongrong, Zhu Xiuqing was too quiet. Since arriving at Xiandao, she had always followed him closely and hadn't caused any trouble for anyone. Her personality was also relatively calm. If he had approached Zhu Xiuqing first, Ninrongrong would have already thrown a tantrum. Noticing Li Sun's gaze, Zhu Xiuqing reacted as if electrocuted, quickly looking away. "You haven't eaten yet, have you? I'll go get you something to eat." She then tried to help Li Sun up, but was instead grabbed and pulled around the waist. "Let me take a nap. There's a fierce battle tonight," Li Sun said, finding a comfortable position and closing his eyes contentedly. Once things started, they had to be settled quickly. Letting one of them overthink could easily lead to unexpected situations. If he didn't feel it might be unfair to Zhu Xiuqing, he might have already taken action. Another fierce battle to fight? Zhu Xiuqing was stunned for a moment. Was he planning to go find Ninrongrong again that night? Still. In an instant, Zhu Xiuqing's mind raced, her heart pounding uncontrollably, a mixture of shyness and repulsion washing over her. She felt incredibly uneasy, shifting slightly, but forcing herself to restrain herself from moving too much, considering Li Sun was lying on her lap. Time ticked by, and Du Yuyan, who had been pretending to be an ostrich, could no longer sit still. She stole a glance at Li Sun, then carefully stood up from the sofa, trying not to make a sound. She had always thought she was the bravest of the three, but after hearing the commotion from last night, she realized she was wrong. Although she had a vague understanding of matters between men and women, The sounds Ning Rongrong made yesterday were terrifying. Even the difficult entrance exam hadn't been like that. Du Yan suddenly felt the medicine her grandfather had given her was burning hot. It seemed she had underestimated the nature of matters between men and women. Hearing the noise, Li Sun slightly opened her eyes, glanced at her, and then fell into deep sleep. Past cases had proven that honest people were easy to bully. Li Sun slept for an hour. Perhaps due to the significant shock, Zhu Xiuqing was still in a state of mental confusion, only snapping back to reality when Li Sun's hands began to move uncontrollably. "I'll go prepare some food," Zhu Xiuqing said, struggling to help Li Sun up before fleeing. At lunchtime, Du Guyan and Ning Rongrong didn't appear, and Zhu Xiuqing had little appetite, quickly eating a little before returning to her room. Li Sun was left alone to eat heartily, trying to replenish his lost energy. Inside the room, Zhu Xiuqing curled up on the sofa, her mind filled with turmoil. She was both afraid that Li Sun wouldn't come to find her and afraid that he would actually come. At this moment, she couldn't help but think of her mother's teachings from her childhood. "I already had an expectation in my heart, so why can't I calm down now? Besides, Brother Li Sun isn't the kind of person who would be distracted by trivial matters." The clock ticked away, time passing second by second. For some reason, Zhu Xiuqing felt as if each day was an eternity. 1 hour, 2 hours passed, but the expected arrival didn't happen. Zhu Xiuqing's inner turmoil gradually dissipated, replaced by a faint sense of disappointment. Could it be that Brother Li Sun didn't mean it that way? Or was he angry because I left too quickly? Li Sun looked at Zhu Xiuqing's tightly closed door, pushed it, and found it locked. As a law-abiding citizen, Li Sun gently knocked on the door. "Xiuqing, open the door, I need to talk to you." His voice traveled through the doorway, but received no response. Helpless, Li Sun added a wisp of his soul power. "Xiuqing, is it really important?" After a long silence, perhaps knowing this wasn't working, or perhaps fearing Li Sun truly had something important to say, Zhu Xiuqing clutched her chest and slowly opened the door a crack. "What's wrong?" Seeing Zhu Xiuqing's cautious expression through the crack, Li Sun smiled, then slammed the door shut, slipping into the room amidst her gasp. Zhu Xiuqing was startled, not knowing what was about to happen, and retreated hastily. "Brother Li Sun, didn't you say you had important business to discuss?" Hearing her stammering words, Li Sun locked the door behind him. "Come on, let's go inside and talk." "Brother Li Sun, let's talk here." Zhu Xiuqing clutched her chest, trying to calm her racing heart. "Who talks about important business in front of the door? Be good, wait for me on the bed." Li Sun familiarly took off his coat and hung it on the coat rack by the door. Zhu Xiuqing felt her heart was about to jump out of her chest. Her mind went blank for a moment, and she walked to the bedside in a daze. She just stood there. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Let me check you over." Seeing this, Li Sun stepped forward with concern and helped Zhu Xiuqing examine her carefully. Feeling the burning heat from his arm, Zhu Xiuqing trembled, her legs went weak, and she collapsed onto the bed. "I'm fine," she said, struggling to breathe, her chest heaving as she gasped for air. "Brother Li Sun, you haven't gotten to the important matter yet. Nothing is more important than your health. Let me check on you first, so you don't get sick again." Li Sun touched Zhu Xiuqing's forehead with the back of his hand. "Your temperature is a little high. It's so hot on this room, and you're wearing so much. You'll easily catch a cold if you go out in the wind." With that, Li Sun considerately helped Zhu Xiuqing remove her thick outer garment. Zhu Xiuqing clutched her inner garment tightly. Don't you have important matters to discuss? What is more important than your health?" Li Sun lifted Zhu Xiuqing's long legs, removed her shoes and socks, and then gently placed them on the bed. Seeing Zhu Xiuqing still sitting there blankly, Li Sun slapped her on the bottom. "Move over a bit, you're making it impossible for me to sit." Knowing she couldn't escape, Zhu Xiuqing buried her head in the blanket, feeling the tingling sensation on her bottom, and felt a shiver run through her body. Hearing the rustling of clothes being taken off, she asked in a muffled voice through the blanket, "Brother Li Sun, can you talk about the important matter now?" "Isn't this the important matter?" Li Sun threw off the blanket and crawled in. Chapter 292: The Liar and the Delay. Zhu Xiuqing's figure was universally acknowledged. Few on the continent could rival her. Although Li Sun often took advantage of her, this was the first time he'd experienced it so directly. The evening sunlight, like gold, streamed through the window, illuminating the room as if it were coated with golden chrysanthemums. Even the messy bed seemed elegant, especially the touch of crimson, which added to its solemnity. A soft, Suppressed sob escaped, and the room seemed to fall into a brief silence. "You should be all right now," a timid voice said, seemingly pleading, but quickly became speechless, only broken, incoherent babbling remaining, as if enduring some kind of torture. Slow down. Time passed second by second, until the last rays of the sunset burned out, ushering in night. But the constitution of a soul master differed from that of day and night. Some only had a brief dawn, while others seemed to possess inexhaustible vitality. Rongrong and Sister Yan should be having dinner. With another surge of life energy flowing into her body, Zhu Xiuqing hurriedly left these words, clutching the sheets, and fled into the bathroom. "Are you hungry?" Li Sun glanced at the time, feeling it was still early, and got up to follow. Exclamation mark. "Haven't you had enough yet? I'll just take a quick shower and leave." Liar. The large living room was somewhat silent. Ninrongrong and Du Yan sat facing each other, looking at the table full of food, but neither of them touched their chopsticks. The soundproofing of this mansion was extremely poor. It seemed that outsiders hadn't been considered when it was built. Therefore, some sounds could be faintly heard even from downstairs. Ninrongrong woke up in the afternoon, and when she heard the sounds from next door, she instantly knew what had happened. Although she felt uncomfortable, it was too late. Even if she barged in, she couldn't change anything. Moreover, given someone's shamelessness, she might even get herself involved. Ninrongrong pouted, only able to curse that person's shamelessness in her heart. 4 hours, and you still can't catch up with me. Hearing the sounds gradually subside, Ninrongrong calculated the time, a strange sense of relief rising within her. This thought startled even herself, her face flushing instantly, and she quickly banished it from her mind. She frantically picked up her chopsticks to eat, but couldn't quite manage to grip them properly. Du Yan glanced at Ninrongrong, pursing her lips. "Rongrong, does it hurt a lot? Why are you moaning like that?" She knew a little about physiology, but only a superficial understanding. But the consecutive groans of pain from the two of them made her vaguely afraid. Hearing this, Ninrongrong's hand trembled, the chopsticks instantly falling to the table. Her face turned bright red, and she looked at Du Yan in disbelief. She hurriedly picked up her chopsticks, not answering, and quickly started eating. Seeing Ninrongrong's reaction, Du Yan had a vague idea, and was about to ask further when she saw Li Sun and Zhu Xiuqing slowly walking down the stairs. She swallowed her words instantly. "Everyone's here." Li Sun greeted them with a smile, and then sat down with Zhu Xiuqing. Perhaps due to awkwardness, apart from Li Sun occasionally saying a few words, the three women ate with their heads down, each lost in their own emotions. Li Sun was prepared for this situation and didn't forcefully intervene. After all, there was still a long time ahead, and as they say, time reveals true character. With time, their hearts would naturally reunite. As for Du Yan, although Li Sun had already made up his mind, seeing her current timid appearance, and knowing that Zhu Xiuqing and Ninrongrong hadn't dealt with her yet, he decided to leave her alone for a while. The outermost part of Poseidon Island was a silver beach, and if there were no missions or restrictions, Li Sun thought it would be a good place for a vacation. In fact, the four of them had been on Poseidon Island for quite a long time, especially the third trial that lasted a year, which practically trapped them in this place. Li Sun gazed at the calm sea, his killing god domain instantly expanding. A chilling killing intent, viewing all things as mere ants, enveloped the surrounding coastline in an instant, causing nearby sea spirit beasts to flee for their lives. Soon after, white fins appeared on the surface, and Xiaobai, leading dozens of demon soul-grade white sharks, approached the shore. "What are you doing?" Xiaobai, seeing Li Sun, visibly relaxed and transformed into human form, arriving at the shore. "You should know about our assessment, right?" Led the way, Li Sun sized up Xiaobai, his first taste of forbidden fruit causing him to subconsciously compare him to Zhu Xiuqing and Ninrongrong. Ultimately, he felt Ninrongrong and Zhu Xiuqing were superior. Xiaobai's expression turned serious, a hint of unease creeping into his heart. "Are you really prepared? The demon Orca King isn't so easy to deal with. Aside from the deep-sea demon Whale King, which can exert some influence over them, they have virtually no rivals in the ocean. Even our demon soul-grade white shark clan is struggling to hold on." Xiaobai immediately recounted the information about the demon orca. "This clan is extremely bloodthirsty. Although I also want to eliminate these creatures that pollute the ocean as soon as possible, I advise you to conserve your strength for another year, lest my people sacrifice themselves in vain." Li Sun laughed upon hearing this. polluting the ocean, evil soul beasts. These were merely excuses to attack their opponents. Isn't survival a soul beast's instinct? How could they, like Tang San, claim these things occupy the moral high ground? Li Sun didn't care about such things. Enemies are enemies, and interests are interests. Don't worry, what you saw last time wasn't even my full strength? I hope you're telling the truth. If I die, could you please take care of my people? Xiao Bai sighed. The task given by the sea god was not something she could disobey, and Li Sun and Ning Rongrong possessed the sea god's divine test, so even if they failed, they had a high chance of survival. How do we get across? Li Sun looked intently at Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai had seen countless sea soul masters give her that look before, so how could she not know what Li Sun was thinking? I am the sea god's mount. The future sea god is also a sea god. Li Sun hugged Ning Rongrong and smiled at Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai's eyes widened at the two of them, but when she saw the mark between their brows, she quickly gave in. Fine, as long as we can completely destroy those who defile the ocean, you can do whatever you want. With a vast ocean universe cover, the group didn't need to worry about breathing underwater, and it also served as an invisibility shield. Xiao Bai's race and the demon oracle were sworn enemies, so they could easily find the others' gathering place. They were already 500 meters above the sea, and the immense water pressure caused the vast ocean universe cover to tremble. Little Bai, just keep your balance for a moment, Li Sun instructed, then summoned his martial soul amidst Little Bai's puzzled gaze. 8 spirit rings appeared in succession, 1 yellow, 2 purple, 2 black, and 3 red. Li Sun's 5th spirit ring lit up, and countless azure spears emerged from the seabed, quickly forming a forest of spears that grew larger and larger, gleaming brilliantly in the seawater. Li Sun rarely used this 5th spirit skill, but the current situation was perfect for it. Chapter 293 Combination and Use of Soul Skills, Equipment Configuration for Martial Soul True Body. Whether the demonic orcapod had polluted the ocean, Li Sun didn't know, but this race was indeed bloodthirsty. They would attack relentlessly at the sight of blood, friend or foe alike. Tang San had passed this test using the ice and fire yin-yang wellspring water and this huge crossbow. Li Sun, however, usually relied on brute force or was equipped with a title, and was unprepared for this. Li Sun's powerful mental energy slowly spread out, carefully memorizing the location of each demonic orca. One 30-meter-long demonic orca was his primary focus. Because he wasn't using a second spirit skill, but rather a crude application of mental energy, and because the vast ocean universe cover was held by Ning Rongrong, Li Sun could conceal his form, but not the fluctuations of his mental energy. The massive mental energy surged forth, immediately alerting the demonic orcapod. The once calm underwater world began to boil. The demonic orcas, far larger than great white sharks, became restless and began frantically scanning their surroundings. The 300 demonic orcas spread out like a giant net, constantly weaving underwater. Xiao Bai watched the enormous figures constantly passing by, her heart pounding in her chest. Her people were waiting in the distance. If they were discovered, she wouldn't even have the chance to call for help. 7th soul skill, True Spirit Body. Unaware of Xiao Bai's worries, Li Sun's 7th soul ring lit up, and a colossal figure suddenly appeared in the water, its shadow instantly looming over every creature. The 500-meter deep water was far too small to contain such a behemoth as the true Thousand Hands. Countless enormous hands were exposed to the air through the water's surface. Stunned. All the creatures in the water were startled, looking up at the colossal figure over 500 meters tall. Even Ning Rongrong and Zhu Xiuqing gaped in disbelief. Xiao Bai trembled with fear, as she was being lifted by a pair of enormous hands. What is this? Li Sun didn't have time to answer her question. Unlike other soul masters, the sheer size of his true spirit body consumed an astonishing amount of soul power. The ocean's resistance was immense. Fists were far less effective than sharp weapons. Hundreds of pre-prepared azure spears were lifted by the massive hands of the martial souls, becoming like chopsticks, instantly piercing the pre-locked targets. The martial soul's enormous hands stirred the water, churning the entire sea. One after another, demonic orcas were pierced by the spears, while others were pushed away by the current. Blood splattered everywhere, instantly turning the seawater murky. The surviving demonic orcas, smelling the blood, instantly lost their minds, completely disregarding the colossal creatures above them, and began frantically tearing at the wounds and corpses of their kin. Madness was the only characteristic of this race. Even some demonic orcas with blood still clinging to their teeth were attacked. The demonic Orca King, though the most elite among them, possessed wisdom. After dodging the attacks with a current, it saw the chaos within its pod and let out a low growl. Ripples spread outwards, instantly restoring the sanity of some of the irrational demon orcas, while those that disobeyed were bitten to death. Roar, the demon Orca King, seeing its less than 100 remaining members, was enraged. A furious roar erupted from the water, the rolling waves shaking the entire sea. Vast energy surged from its body, sealing off the space, and powerful mental energy transmitted to every demon orca present through ripples. Be careful. The demon Orca King is announcing to its entire clan that it's preparing to launch a full-scale attack on you. Xiaobai cautiously glanced at Li Sun standing atop her head. She now understood that the enormous creature cradling her was Li Sun's martial soul true form. It's alright, I'm just afraid it won't dare fight me head-on. Li Sun smiled calmly, his 8th spirit ring lighting up. A chill slowly spread outwards. His 8th spirit ring came from a 200,000-year-old Titan snow demon ape, its 2 spirit skills being power amplification and ice manipulation. Crack. 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 A series of rapid cracking sounds echoed from the seabed, as wisps of white ice spread rapidly from around the martial soul, following hundreds of giant hands as they attacked the demonic orca pod. Seeing this, the demonic Orca King's eyes blazed red, and it continuously unleashed red energy blades from its mouth, severing the wooden hands one by one. The other demonic orcas launched water arrows from their dorsal fins orbit and fought back. Crack. 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 A series of crisp cracking sounds emanated from the seabed as more and more hands were broken, and more demonic orcas perished. Faced with nearly 1,000 giant hands, the remaining less than 100 demonic orcas were utterly unable to defend themselves effectively, frequently being crushed by the giant hands or frozen by their icy power. The demonic orca pod had suffered a fatal blow. In almost a single exchange, only 30-odd members remained beside the demonic Orca King. Although both sides were losing, each loss of a demonic orca added pressure to other positions. And the massive wooden hands still numbered 400 or 500. Water arrows shot from the demon Orca King's dorsal fin, and crimson moon blades spewed from its mouth. Although each strike was effective, its tribesmen were dwindling, and the pressure on it was mounting. Roar, the demon Orca King roared and began to retreat slowly, with the other demon orcas following suit. Trying to escape, Li Sun frowned. After cultivating for 100,000 years, a soul beast's intelligence was no different from that of a human, so choosing to temporarily avoid a direct confrontation was understandable. However, although he had the advantage, his martial soul true body consumed a great deal of soul power, making prolonged combat impossible, let alone sustained pursuit. Titan Snow Demon King's left leg soul bone skill, extreme cold spread, a chill, combined with the 8th soul ring, spread outwards, the near extreme cold instantly freezing the seawater. Instead of using his martial soul to attack, he used his extended reach to cut off the demon Orca King's retreat. Hands suddenly extended, plunging into the seabed ahead, forming a wide cage. Although the cage was crude and had large gaps, it was sufficient to trap the demonic Orca King, which was often 20 or 30 meters long. The demonic Orca King was shocked and launched a frantic attack, attempting to break through the blockade. However, the sheer number of hands, radiating coldness, slowly froze the seawater. Ice shattered continuously, and giant hands were pulverized. Gradually, the demonic Orca King felt its energy dwindling. It suddenly felt powerless. Just as it weakened, a barrage of giant hands pounded on its body, and spears pierced its flesh. Waves of cold air swept over it, instantly sealing it within, forming a gigantic ice sculpture. Despair overwhelmed it. The demonic Orca King thrashed wildly, but the ice encasing it grew thicker and colder, and its body gradually lost its vitality. A venomous glint flashed in the demonic Orca King's eyes. It considered self-destruction, but seeing Li Sun's intention to capture it alive and the distance between them, it abandoned the idea. Slowly, it closed its dark red eyes, preparing to look for an opportunity. Xiaobai watched this scene in astonishment. She had been prepared to die, but unexpectedly, Li Sun single-handedly defeated the demon Orca pod and even captured the demon Orca King. Send the signal, let your people clean up the mess. Li Sun deactivated his martial soul true body, feeling a sudden emptiness within him. He gently tapped Xiaobai's head with his foot. At this point, only a dozen or so demon orcas remained, and they were relatively young, posing no further threat. Ah. Okay, Xiaobai snapped out of her daze and quickly agreed. Wait, dragged the demon orca king ashore. Li Sun manipulated vines to wrap around the ice ball encasing the demon orca king, hanging it on Xiaobai. Although it didn't look very good, Xiaobai readily agreed to the request, excitedly pulling the ice block towards the surface. She never imagined that the demon orcapod that had plagued her clan would simply disappear like that. Chapter 294, A Promise Made in Childhood. White fins traced silver trails across the blue sea. Little White was extremely excited, dragging the demon orca king rapidly towards Seagoat Island. The blood feud between the demon soul great white shark and the demon orcapod, spanning millennia, was finally avenged, making every cell in her body boil with excitement. Although she was the Seagoat's mount, the Seagoat hadn't shown them any special care. She vividly remembered her brother's mangled body sinking to the bottom of the sea 100 years ago. But she never imagined she would witness the demise of this evil race today. Little White couldn't help but let out a high-pitched cry to the sky, venting her emotions. With a powerful thrust of her massive tail fin, she flung a block of ice, about 50 or 60 meters high, onto the beach. With a dull thud, a huge crater appeared on the sand. What are you going to do with it? Once Li Sun and the others were ashore, Little White transformed into human form and approached the ice ball, touching and examining it with a mixture of joy and disbelief. Zhu Qing needs a spirit ring, and the demonic tiger whale king is a perfect substitute. Reaching 100,000 years is a qualitative leap for a spirit beast. For both the beast and the spirit master, the limitations of race and spirit compatibility no longer apply. The quality of the spirit ring can compensate for these shortcomings. Zhu Qing reached level 72 months ago. Her sixth spirit ring reached 81,000 years at the cost of 2 lives. Coupled with a year of tidal body tempering, Li Sun felt absorbing the 100,000-year demonic tiger whale king shouldn't be a problem. Brother Li Sun, 100,000-year spirit beasts are rare. Why don't we lock it up like Xiao Wu did, and absorb it when you break through? No spirit master can resist the allure of a 100,000-year spirit ring, and Zhu Qing was no exception. However, thinking of Li Sun's imminent approaching level 90, she buried her desire deep within. Besides, their relationship had progressed further, and she didn't want to hinder Li Sun's progress. Li Sun felt a warmth in his heart upon hearing this, realizing his pampering of him hadn't been in vain. Just focus on absorbing the essence. I'll find another soul beast when I level up. Zhu Xiaogang's red lips parted slightly, but Li Sun slapped him on the butt. Go quickly. This soul beast, though 100,000 years old, is still no match for the Titan giant ape, perhaps because they were already so close. Although still somewhat embarrassed in front of everyone, Zhu Xiaogang was now much more immune to such intimate gestures, unlike before when he would only shyly lower his head. At this moment, the freezing effect on the demonic orca king had been lifted by Li Sun, but due to suffering too many severe injuries, it wanted to retaliate but lacked the strength. Self-destruction. This was the only thought remaining in its mind. The reason the demonic orca king hadn't done so in the sea was because it was worried that the distance was too great and its burst of energy wouldn't be enough to kill this group. Now that these people, including that demonic soul great white shark, were here, it was a good opportunity to take them down with it. The immense energy, distorting even the air, was gathered by the demonic orca king as it ignited its flesh, causing its body to expand like a balloon. An invisible shield gradually rose, enveloping its body. Let's die together. The demonic orca king's eyes flashed red, and it opened its massive maw, revealing a cruel smile against a backdrop of rows of sharp teeth. No. It's going to self-destruct, Little White exclaimed in shock, unleashing bursts of energy from its hands, only to be blocked by the invisible shield. The 3 women were also startled. They had heard of soul beasts self-destructing. If the energy of a soul beast that had cultivated for 100,000 years were to erupt, none of them present would survive. I've never heard of many succeeding in this kind of self-destruction. Li Sun smiled calmly, the water-cold sword appearing in his hand, his spiritual power instantly reaching a spiritual sea. Xianmeng, get up and get to work. Call me brother, Xianmeng muttered unhappily. Li Sun was excellent in both talent and strength, but it had reminded him countless times about how to address him, to no avail. In Li Sun's words, I've already helped you become a god. Don't you know who's the older brother? A red spirit ring lit up beneath his feet, and a terrifying pressure erupted from Li Sun's body. Affected by this pressure, even Xiao Bai almost couldn't breathe, looking at Li Sun with fear. The 3 girls' legs went weak, nearly collapsing to their knees. Li Sun and Tianmeng's mental energy intertwined and suddenly surged into the demonic tiger whale king's mind. First spirit skill, mental interference. This skill was one of the 4 skills in the second spirit ring, capable of interfering with the opponent's cognition and causing mental confusion. Although not as simple and brutal as a mental attack, the power of this interference, combined with Tianmeng's immense mental energy, was far stronger than imagined. As mental energy continuously distorted cognition in his mind, the demonic tiger whale king's originally crazed expression froze, instantly standing still. The invisible shield also began to distort as the energy supply stopped, slowly showing mottled damage. Seeing Li Sun's signal, Zhu Xiuqing instantly understood. She thrust her sword forward, her figure flashing around the demonic tiger whale king, slipping through an opening in its invisible protective barrier. The demonic tiger whale king hadn't yet recovered from its confusion, though physically powerful, its weaknesses were glaringly obvious. Not wanting to waste this fleeting opportunity, Zhu Xiuqing's 4th spirit ring lit up, creating 6 identical clones that launched continuous attacks. Although Zhu Xiuqing's 4th spirit ring was from a 1,000-year-old 3-eyed demon fox, it had been enhanced twice. Once with a 50,000-year-old 3-eyed demon fox skull, and the other with her 6th divinely bestowed spirit ring. Now, each of her clones was nearly a physical entity, possessing 70% of her original strength. A moment later, as the demonic tiger whale king's aura vanished, a vibrant red spirit ring slowly rose. Zhu Xiuqing absorbed the spirit ring smoothly without any unexpected problems, and her spirit power instantly reached level 76. Unfortunately, she had already absorbed Tang Hao's left leg bone and couldn't obtain the complete demonic tiger whale king set. Brother, what should we do with this 100,000-year-old soul bone? Ningrongrong looked at Li Sun with bright eyes, a hint of longing flashing across her face. Li Sun smiled and weighed the demon orca king's left leg bone in his hand. Didn't I promise you when we were little that I'd get you a 100,000-year-old soul bone? Now I've kept my promise. Brother, you still remember something from so long ago? Ningrongrong carefully took the soul bone, her lips unable to suppress a smile. But this isn't a good idea, is it? If we give it to Grandpa Sword and the others, maybe it can improve their combat power a bit. Although the 100,000-year-old soul bone was very good, Ningrongrong still retained a sliver of reason. It's rare that you have a conscience. Li Sun smiled and gently tugged at the soul bone, noticing that Ningrongrong, though reluctant, still let go. After all, she was a woman he had trained for many years. Li Sun laughed heartily and stuffed the soul bone into Ningrongrong's arms. Don't worry, although a 100,000-year soul bone is rare, our family won't lack one. What you need to do now is to quickly improve your strength. As for Grandpa Sword and the others, I'll take care of that. Seeing Ningrongrong's smile return, Li Sun felt satisfied. This little girl had always been the one with the lowest cultivation among the 4, currently only at level 65, even Du Guyan was 4 levels higher than her. Now, with the strength of Sword Douluo and the others, a single soul bone was no longer decisive, and Ningrongrong absorbing the soul bone to enhance her soul power would also help with the upcoming divine test. Because the necessary condition for becoming a god is the level of soul power. The 2 of them shared the sea god's divine power equally, and if Ningrongrong's soul power level was not up to standard, it might slow down his progress. Rather, it would definitely slow him down. Li Sun kept recalling what his clone had explored, and an idea struck him. If successful, not only himself, but also his teacher and Grandpa Sword might benefit from it. However, it was still just a rough draft. Chapter 295 Poseidon's Request and the Stalemate. The rewards of the divine trial arrived as scheduled. However, since Zhu Xiuqing and Du Guyan hadn't played a significant role in the trial, the divine trial only rewarded them with 1 level of soul power and an increase in their 500-year soul ring cap. As for Ningrongrong, perhaps because Li Sun was just there to accompany her, the 2 of them still shared the sea god's affinity. At this moment, Zhu Xiuqing's soul power was level 77, while Du Guyan and Ningrongrong had also reached level 70 as they wished, and were preparing to absorb their first divine soul ring. Poseidon calmly watched Ningrongrong absorbing her divine soul ring. Li Sun, can I ask you to do something for me? Please speak, senior. If I am capable. Li Sun cupped his hands, not making any definitive statements. It's nothing serious, you don't need to worry about it too much. Poseidon thought for a moment, not revealing the details of her affair with Tang Chen, but saying vaguely, I made a promise with Tang Chen of the Clear Sky sect, but he disappeared for decades, and I don't know if he's still alive. The 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School and the Clear Sky sect have always had a good relationship. If you have time when you get back, could you help me inquire about it? Sure enough, Li soon understood. As their strength increased, time was running out for Poseidon, and she probably felt some regret. However, Seagoat Island only cared about its own affairs, and information was somewhat limited. Poseidon didn't know the relationship between the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School and the Clear Sky sect because neither he, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, nor the Spirit Hall wanted another living Tang Chen to appear on the continent. He was destined to be unable to fulfill Poseidon's request. More precisely, he couldn't even let Tang Chen see her one last time. Who knew if their friendship would cause Poseidon to have other thoughts? Senior Poseidon, it's not that I refuse, but Tang Chen has been missing for decades, not even appearing when the Clear Sky sect was in its most critical moment. This is common knowledge on the mainland, Li soon said apologetically. It's widely rumored that Tang Chen is dead, and the Clear Sky sect is not what it used to be. He was telling the truth and wasn't afraid of Poseidon's investigation. Is that so? A shadow of sadness crossed Poseidon's eyes. So he's been dead all along. Thank you for telling me this. Be careful when you leave the island this time, and don't forget the 1-year assessment period. After a brief silence, Poseidon belatedly nodded to Li Sun, then soared into the sky and disappeared from sight without waiting for a reply. Li Sun stood there, a thoughtful look in his eyes. Poseidon was actually a tragic figure. Her existence was solely for the purpose of sacrificing herself for the sea god's successor and opening the gates to the divine realm. And the strong are always lonely and proud, especially those like Poseidon, Tang Chen, and Jin Daoliu, because it's rare for anyone else to earn their respect. This explains why Poseidon and Tang Chen's feelings for each other were so genuine. Jin Daoliu, after his defeat, never again considered pursuing Poseidon. If there's an opportunity, he might try to help. Li Sun didn't dislike Poseidon, they weren't enemies, and his arrival hadn't offended her. Her composure in the face of death was proof enough of her character. Although Poseidon knew of Tang Chen's death, the fact that he hadn't died in front of her deepened their feelings. She might be depressed now, but she shouldn't give up on herself, given their decades-long separation and the expectation she had. Since the Heavenly Dao Empire's blitzkrieg against Douluo, the situation on the continent has changed daily. Despite the support of the Clear Sky sect and numerous powerful figures within the Douluo Empire, they couldn't withstand the Heavenly Dao army's slow advance. This was all because the Douluo Empire's high-end forces were tied down, while their army was overwhelmed by the war machines developed by Heavenly Dao. The emergence of various weapons, such as the triple bow crossbow and the swarm of bees, a type of explosive weapon, and even a kind of explosive powder barrel, truly shocked the Douluo army. Although Douluo had the hidden weapon blueprints given by Tang Sen, they had only recently acquired them. Even the classic's huge crossbow was limited by its range, making it only effective in close combat. However, despite having the overall advantage, the Heaven Dao Empire did not advance rashly. This was mainly because Douluo had too many powerful individuals. The Clear Sky sect, excluding Tang Hao, had 6 other Titled Douluo, among whom Tang Zio was a level 97 Titled Douluo. There are 3 watersheds after a Soul Master is titled, level 90 to 95, level 95 to 98, and the final level 99. Although Sword Douluo was strong, the Clear Sky Hammer was not to be underestimated. The power of Tang Zio's 9-ring simultaneous explosion truly lived up to the name of the Clear Sky Twin Stars. However, the exploding rings had the side effect of not being able to use soul power for 3 days. After suffering a setback, the Douluo Empire always had Tang Zio, the Grand Elder of the Clear Sky sect, by his side whenever he fought Sword Douluo, to avoid the explosion of his rings during battle and prevent any temporary gaps in his combat power. Bone Douluo and Poison Douluo encountered the same situation. Although their opponents did not have Super Douluo, their coordinated and alternating attacks created a stalemate in the battle between Titled Douluo. Although Tang Hao's strength had declined due to his physical disability, he was not too weak. With the assistance of the Agile clan and the Imperial clan, he was like a firefighter rushing to the rescue. The only ones from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School who could restrain him were Yang Wudi and the Dragon and Snake couple. However, the battle situation changed rapidly, and the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School's intelligence was weaker than that of the Douluo Empire, resulting in a stalemate between the two sides. This can't go on any longer. What's the difference between this and a slow death? 200 miles outside Antonio City, in the Star Luo frontline command camp, the 7th elder slammed his fist on the table in anger. I still maintain my previous view. Star Luo is finished. We need to prepare as soon as possible. 7th elder, this matter has been discussed too many times. We haven't reached the point of no return yet. Don't disrupt morale. The 1st elder coughed heavily. Right now, Star Luo's battle lines are just too long. If they contract again, with a starred-out Great Forest as a natural barrier, it will be beyond doubt that suffers. Tang Xiao's expression was also grim. How could he not see Star Luo's disadvantage through the constantly retreating battle lines? But they weren't without the strength to fight. More importantly, if the Haoshan sect withdrew from Star Luo now, their reputation would be truly ruined, and they would have nowhere to go on the entire continent. The Haoshan sect couldn't afford such a loss. The most urgent task now is to discuss how to defend Antonio City. If this place falls into the hands of Yondao, Yanlong province will be completely exposed, and Jingxin City will become a frontline position. Tang Xiao tapped the table, his brows furrowed as he looked at the map. Jingxin City was the steel capital, and the Blacksmiths Association played a crucial role in the war. Although Yandao's weaponry was superior, Xingluo had not been without progress. Led by the master blacksmith Lu Gao, the various grandmaster blacksmiths were working overtime to decipher the Yondao Empire's weapons of war. Let the elders practice the final move of the great Sumeru hammer. At this moment, Tang Hao, sitting at the very end, suddenly spoke up. Nonsense. 2nd elder Tang Ming's eyebrows trembled with anger as he pointed at Tang Hao. You know the risk of exploding rings. If your physique isn't strong enough, you're prone to exploding during practice. The great Sumeru hammer was never a top secret for these elders, it was just that the cultivation method was too harsh, requiring extremely strong talent and physique to cultivate steadily. That's just your excuse for cowardice. If it were truly that difficult, how did I manage to cultivate successfully during my time as a sole Douluo? Tang Hao surveyed the scene expressionlessly. Now that you are all titled Douluos, your physiques are not weak. Why shackle yourselves? Tang Hao had originally intended to use his victory over the titled Douluo Jin's Unji at level 90 as an example, but then changed his mind. These people already harbored resentment towards him, and bringing up the past now would likely provoke a barrage of criticism. I think I should have a way to stabilize the situation. Just as the atmosphere in the tent became tense, Tang San's voice came from outside. Chapter 296. Is this kid so ruthless and fast? Tang San had been listening outside the tent for a while, understanding his father's situation and difficulties within the sect. Moreover, this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Although he was angry, his current strength was only at level 78, and he couldn't change everyone's attitude. Father, please bear with me a little longer. Once I've grown stronger, I will definitely make these people take back their words, Tang San thought to himself. Although the elders of the Clear Sky sect didn't treat him the same way as his father, Tang San understood that it all stemmed from his talent and the Clear Sky sect's current lack of capable successors. If he hadn't strived for excellence, he might now be like his father, suppressed and unable to hold his head high within the sect. However, these elders might have forgotten the difference between insulting his father and insulting himself. Little San, you're back, Tang Xiao chuckled, interrupting Tang San's turbulent emotions. I see your aura has grown considerably. It seems you gained quite a bit from your trip. I did gain some things this time, but I'm still a long way from becoming a true powerhouse, Tang San said with a humble smile. He had a good impression of his uncle, because the uncle not only treated him well but also secretly helped his father a lot. Otherwise, his father's situation in the sect would be even more difficult. Good. Hearing Tang San's answer, not only Tang Xiao but also all the elders present showed satisfied smiles. With Tang San's current cultivation progress, he had far surpassed the previous generation of Haoshan twin stars and could be called the new generation leader of Haoshan sect. I wonder what the method you just mentioned is. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Tang Xiao asked with a smile. Isn't Uncle's current difficulty that our high-end combat power is being restrained by the 7 treasure Glazed tile school? I can find some strong people. Tang San raised his head, his eyes revealing confidence. What? Everyone was stunned. Little San, this is not a place for jokes. Do you know what level of cultivation I am looking for in these strong people? Tang Xiao's face flashed with displeasure, worried that Tang San was being too confident and would make a mistake in front of the elders. Even Tang Hao's forehead furrowed upon hearing this, but he quickly recovered, remembering his son's character and unlikely to speak without reason. Tang San, seeing the doubtful expressions on everyone's faces, smiled calmly. Of course I know that, could you tell your uncle beforehand? Tang Xiao, seeing Tang San's certainty, became somewhat interested. If a powerful figure from the Star Luo Empire joined at this time, it might reverse the tide of battle due to the addition of high-level combat power. Uncle, I'm sorry I can't tell you beforehand, but don't worry. However, be prepared, I'm afraid you'll be shocked. Tang San's eyes shone brightly, radiating confidence. 300 miles from Antonio City, the Heaven Dao Empire's army was busily setting up camp. Unlike the gradually declining morale of the Star Luo Empire, most people here were beaming with smiles and confidence. At this moment, military affairs were also being discussed in the commander's tent. Apart from Ning Fengzi overseeing the overall situation in the capital, most of the core figures from the Heaven Dao and Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School front lines were present. The Min clan and the Yu clan have been of great help to the Star Luo Empire, otherwise, we should already be in Antonio City by now. Douluo snorted coldly. Old Yang, have you had any success communicating with Bibi and Rhinoceros? Yang Wudi looked troubled upon hearing this, clearly still harboring some special feelings for his former good brother. Everyone says I'm stubborn, but actually, old Bibi is the most stubborn among us. No one except the Haoshan sect can change his mind, otherwise, his clan wouldn't be struggling to make ends meet. As for the Yu clan, they are interested but still hesitant. Yang Guangfeng, Poison Gongfeng isn't targeting you, but we know the bond between the Po clan and the Min clan. With a heavenly battle progressing steadily, if the Min clan continues to be obstinate, they might follow in the footsteps of the Li clan. This is something none of us want to see. It's alright if you spend a little more time, Sword Douluo said with a smile. Communication has always been one of the most important things in war. Although the Min clan wasn't particularly strong in combat, they possessed the fastest martial soul on the entire continent. It was thanks to this clan that Xingluo was able to react promptly to the Xiaogang attack. Sigh. I can't persuade him. Once the old white bird has made up his mind, not even 10 oxen can pull him back. Yang Wudi had known the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School members for 10 years and naturally knew that Douluo wasn't targeting him. He just couldn't help but sigh at the thought of the consequences of the White Crane's refusal. The two clans had a deep connection. Yang Qianjin's wife was a daughter of the Min clan, which was why he hadn't been able to make up his mind as decisively as he had with the Li clan. Yang Qianjin was currently sitting in a corner of the tent, his head drooping. His wife had already written to him about this matter, but since it involved a war between two great empires and sects, he hadn't replied. Old Yang, now that you've made your decision, things are much easier. You don't need to interfere with the Min clan and the Yu clan. And you, young Yang, the same goes for you. Go back and appease your wife. I'll play the villain. Douluo had met Bibi before, and with his decades of experience judging people, he could tell at a glance that trying to win over those miscellaneous birds and rhinoceroses was a complete waste of time, not to mention that Bibi was a relative of the Haoshan sect. Yang Qianjin looked at Douluo gratefully. In a battle between two armies fighting for their respective sides, casualties were inevitable, but as long as his hands weren't stained with the blood of the Min clan, it was fine. Alright, Yang Wudi sighed, slowly closing his eyes and falling into a long silence. Without internal obstacles and personal favors, the subsequent discussion was much easier. The only difficulty was that the Min clan was too fast. If they simply fled, even a Sword Douluo couldn't catch Bibi. Moreover, they would definitely face resistance from the Haoshan sect. Just as everyone was intensely discussing countermeasures, a message came in saying that several young men wanted to see the commander here, carrying tokens from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School and the Spirit Hall. The tent fell silent instantly. Then the atmosphere became even more heated, with some leading the way out of the tent. Because in the entire 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, only one person dared to brazenly enter the heavily guarded military camp with a Spirit Hall token, the little national preceptor of Heaven Dao. It's been over a year since I last saw you. You seem to have grown quite a bit taller, and even more manly. Sword Douluo chuckled, patting Li Sun's shoulder. Then, seeing Ning Rongrong behind him, his eyes lit up. It's been 3 years. Our Rongrong has grown into a young lady. Li Sun, the ruler of Seagood Island, still occasionally returned, but Ning Rongrong, Zhu Xiaogang, and Du Yuyan had remained on the island, cultivating. Now, both their physique and demeanor were vastly different from 3 years ago. They had lost some of their childishness and gained more maturity. "Grandpa Sword, you tease me as soon as I get back," Ningrongrong said, her earlobes slightly red. "If that old hag doesn't care about you, you still have Grandpa Bone, right?" Bone Douluo strode over from a distance. "But Rongrong is indeed getting more and more beautiful, and so is Xiaogang." Seeing that the two of them said this, Ningrongrong's eyes darted away, and she secretly glanced at Li Sun. But everyone present was a shrewd person, apart from Sword Douluo, who as a bachelor, they had all been through similar experiences. Upon seeing Zhu Xiaogang, they immediately understood the expressions and eyes of Ningrongrong, Li Sun, and the other two. "This kid is so ruthless and fast?" Everyone was shocked. Then, they carefully looked at the three girls' eyes and eyebrows and found that the childishness between Zhu Xiaogang and Ningrongrong had faded. Chapter 297 The Min Clan, A Return to Glory. The moment this thought crossed everyone's minds, a strange feeling arose. They had initially wondered how Li Sun would handle the complex emotions of the group, but they hadn't expected him to act so swiftly. He'd already won over both of them after just one trip to Seagate Island. They'd been expecting Ningrongrong and the other two to torment Li Sun to the point of tearing his hair out. Poison Douluo, with a spectator's mentality, looked around, but when he saw his granddaughter, he noticed something amiss. Compared to the other two girls, Douguyan seemed less familiar with Li Sun, more distant. What was going on? Wasn't this girl always so proactive? He'd even given out a prepared potion, so why was she left out? A series of questions flashed through Dougubo's mind, and he decided to talk to Douguyan later. The group hadn't seen each other for a long time, and chatted for a while, mostly about Li Sun, Ningrongrong, and Zhu Xiaokang's teasing. Like many parents, it was mostly about wanting great-grandchildren and weddings. The two women blushed and kept their heads down, unable to answer directly. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, they quickly left. Douguyan also felt uncomfortable in this atmosphere, especially seeing Zhu Xiaogang and Ningrongrong's shy expressions. She admitted she was a little scared. After all, the screams of the past few days had been quite frightening, somewhat different from what she had imagined. Feeling that she should have been one of them, Douguyan couldn't sit still any longer and followed the two out of the tent. Seeing that the main topic had disappeared, the conversation gradually returned to normal, starting to discuss the various problems they were currently facing. The Min clan, in particular, was of paramount importance. The shark-tailed swift truly deserves its reputation as the fastest martial soul on the continent. Although it doesn't possess much strength, in terms of speed alone, even I am a step behind. Sword Douluo was now a level 98 expert, but in terms of speed, he was indeed inferior to the White Crane, unless he leveled up again. However, level 99 and 98 were a true watershed. Aptitude, talent, and great opportunity were all indispensable. Now that he's older, unlike the energetic young Li Sun, he might never cross this threshold without a tremendous stroke of luck. The others also fell into thought. Although Yang Wudi's side was dealt with, how to eliminate the clear sky sex win was another problem. "I think I should have a way." Just when everyone was at a loss, Li Sun gently tapped the table. Seeing everyone's attention focused on him, he smiled and said, "My second martial soul, enhanced by my second soul ring, can now locate and track targets, unless they keep moving through the air and escape my mental energy range." Everyone's eyes lit up. Sword Douluo and the others instantly thought of Li Sun's second martial soul's ability. On the Antonio front of the Starfall Empire, the Min clan, due to their martial soul abilities, was currently receiving great attention from the Empire and the Clear Sky sect, an honor and treatment unseen for many years, filling the family with both excitement and satisfaction. The Min clan had suffered greatly in recent years, to the point that they needed aid from the other three clans to avoid starvation. All of this was caused by that sect that claimed to be the number one on the continent. Initially, the Clear Sky sect's high-profile emergence didn't bother the Min clan, as they knew who had brought them this hardship and didn't want to experience a second betrayal. Especially with the fate of the Power Clan looming before them. The Heaven Dao, the Spirit Hall, and the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School were entangled in an ambiguous relationship. That period truly terrified Bai. Had he not been quick enough, he might have followed in their footsteps. However, Bai's resolve didn't last long, swayed by the personal visits of Tang Zio and Tang Hao. Those repeated calls of uncle and relatives were hard to refuse, and he also felt a hidden joy. No matter how important the other three families were, they couldn't compare to his Min clan. Bai He constantly observed the Heaven Dao's every move from high above. He knew the Star Luo Empire was currently at a disadvantage, but it was precisely in such times that the importance of their Min clan became even more apparent. While the old goat's words made sense, his Min clan was, after all, a relative of the Clear Sky sect, and Star Luo needed them more. Star Luo's current battle lines are simply too long. If they abandon some territory and consolidate their forces again, Bai He believes Star Luo can withstand Yuan Dao's attack. At that time, neither side can defeat the other, and the two empires will surely usher in peace, from which the Min clan will also benefit. However, the Yazi clan seems to have been making unusual moves recently. We should find time to see what old Rhino is thinking. If the Yazi clan has rebellious intentions, then we need to have Xiao Hao and the others prepare as soon as possible. Something's happening. Bai He's eyes narrowed as he noticed people pouring out of Yuan Dao's continuous military camps, and soldiers were beginning to dismantle their tents in an orderly manner. Leveling pits, burying fires, and packing up tents, these were signs of an army's advance. Did they just advance 80 miles yesterday? Aren't they afraid of a Star Luo counterattack with such rash actions? Although Bai He was puzzled by the Yuan Dao commander's decision, the opportunity was fleeting. Such a tiring march might be manageable for soul masters, but ordinary soldiers certainly couldn't endure it. This was the perfect time for Star Luo to counterattack. While the high-end combat power of Heavenly Dao required the full strength of Star Luo to withstand, there are limits to human capabilities, including those of soul masters. Although Sword Douluo and his group were strong, they couldn't launch an endless offensive. The many powerful figures of the Clear Sky sect constantly used these opportunities to stabilize the situation. This allowed Star Luo to maintain a relatively manageable overall loss, despite its continuous retreat. Taking out a specially made signal firecracker and launching it into the distant sky, Bai He's eyes were fixed on the military camps of the Heavenly Dao forces. His task was to keep a close watch on the Heavenly Dao experts. As long as their movements were restricted, the rest would be handled by his clan members. Suddenly, several figures flew out from the Heavenly Dao command camp. Bai He's heart tightened, and he quickly launched fireworks of different colors into the sky, each color representing the movement of a powerful figure from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Clan Chief Bai He, would you like to chat? A hearty laugh came from afar. Sword Douluo and Li Sun slowly appeared in Bai He's sight, getting closer and closer. A glint flashed in Bai He's aged, cloudy eyes as he silently assessed the safe distance between them. What does your majesty wish to discuss? Of all the beings in the Heaven Dao Empire, the one he needed to be most wary of was Sword Douluo. This was the most crucial aspect of his mission. Casually launching a fiery firework into the air, Bai He hovered in midair. Although he guessed Sword Douluo's intentions were simply to recruit him, he could stall him, giving his side some time to prepare. Although Sword Douluo and the young man were still approaching, he had escaped Sword Douluo's pursuit many times before, and naturally understood the speed difference between them and the safe distance to maintain. I wish to speak with you, Senior. Li Sun jumped off Sword Douluo's flying sword, hovering in midair. Who are you? Bai He was taken aback, slightly puzzled. Senior may not have seen me before. Let me introduce myself. My name is Li Sun. You are Li Sun. Bai He's aged face contorted. He had heard this name countless times. Since the two empires went to war, Zengluo and Haoshan sect had drawn up a list of personnel for the Xiandao Empire, and Li Sun was ranked 6th, even higher than Emperor Zhu King. This was both an emphasis on and a sign of apprehension towards a genius. Li Sun smiled at Bai He. Senior, on behalf of the Xiandao Empire, I'll ask you one last time, are you really willing to share life and death with Zengluo? You can represent Xiandao. Bai He smiled, his aged face not quite pleased with his expression. It seems this is your answer. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298 Sword-Wielding Pursuit, Immortals and Buddha's Descent to Earth. Seeing Bai He's completely unconcerned expression, Li Sun's smile remained unchanged. The water-cold sword appeared in his hand, and 2 red spirit rings emerged one after another beneath his feet. The distance was sufficient, and out of respect for the Breaking Clan, the opportunity had been given. It was time for this person to go. 2 100,000-year spirit rings, Bai He's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets when he saw the 2 red spirit rings beneath Li Sun's feet. No. No, this is your second spirit, his heart suddenly raised. The Starfall Empire had data on Li Sun's first 7 spirit rings, although it was only a rough analysis, it was definitely not what it was now. Recalling Tang San's twin spirit rings, Bai He immediately understood what kind of existence the longsword in Li Sun's hand was. No, this news must be sent back immediately. He also had to raise this kid's kill ranking by 2 or 3 levels. With a thought, a pair of wings extended from his back, preparing to abandon the Sword Douluo's surveillance and return to Starluo. Too late, although the distance between Li Sun and Bai He was far, compared to his spiritual power, the distance was already sufficient. A surge of spiritual energy suddenly enveloped Bai He, and the first and second red spirit rings lit up in succession. The 2 spirit skills, spiritual lock-on and location tracking, instantly acted upon Bai He. Whoosh, a sonic boom resounded as the water-cold sword flew towards Bai He with unparalleled speed, along with Li Sun, who was gripping the hilt tightly. The speed was so fast that even Bai He and Li Sun themselves were astonished. Not good, Bai He's heart trembled. Li Sun already possessed the strength of a level 60 spirit emperor 4 years ago, who knew how much he would improve in those 4 years? Single attribute families all focus on one aspect, and the agility clan focuses on speed, inherently lacking much combat power. Bai He had no doubt that if Li Sun got close, he would surely die. Martial soul true body, 8 spirit rings appeared beneath Bai He's feet, the 5th to 7th rings lighting up in succession, instantly increasing his speed. The swift-tailed swift, worthy of being the fastest martial soul on the continent, instantly created distance between itself and Li Sun with the enhancement of its spirit skill. Li Sun had anticipated this situation. He exerted force, twisting in midair and stepping onto the water-cold sword, using his soul power to firmly adhere himself to the blade. He flew on his sword. Feeling the wind whistling past his ears, Li Sun's eyes brightened, a surge of pride welling up within him, an almost irresistible urge to let out a long roar. His mental energy remained locked on the white crane. Although his tracking didn't provide speed, it would continue as long as the white crane remained within his mental energy range. And he had no shortage of mental energy. Xian Meng, get to work. The white crane was fast, but it wasn't teleportation. Now it depended on how long its soul power and soul skills could last. A common saying is enduring the old man's exhaustion. Sword Douluo, seeing the 2 speeding away, summoned the 7-kill sword and quickly followed. Although Li Sun's soul power had reached level 88, he wasn't a true Titled Douluo. The Clear Sky sect had many powerful figures, including super Douluos like Tang Xiao and Tang Ming. He absolutely couldn't let Li Sun be risked being surrounded. The howling wind stung his face. Bai He turned to look behind him, only to see a dark shadow approaching him at a steady pace. How is this possible? A single glance sent a chill down his spine. His 6th and 8th spirit rings lit up, instantly boosting his speed significantly and steadily increasing the distance between them. Until the dark shadow slowly became a black dot. No, I have to hurry back and tell the sect leader. This kid's spirit skills are too bizarre. Bai He identified the direction, the Antonio defense line of the Starluo Empire. He sped forward, and soon rows of tents came into view, the defense line 200 miles outside Antonio City. Bai He was now panting heavily, still shaken but somewhat relieved. Once he reached this point, he was absolutely safe. However, for some reason, he felt a thorn in his side. He instinctively looked back and saw a dark shadow rapidly approaching him. Impossible, Bai He exclaimed. This scene was completely unexpected. His speed was the fastest on the continent. Although he hadn't compared to level 99 Peerless Douluo, Bai He felt he was no less capable. How could he be caught up by a mere youth? His spirit ring's effect had worn off, leaving him in a state of lingering weakness. Although this gap was short and he still had spirit power remaining, Bai He felt uneasy. We've reached the defensive line. If you want to chase, then come on. Bai He forcibly suppressed his emotions, a glint of light flashing in his eyes, and flew towards the Clear Sky sect's encampment. His speed had slowed, and Li Sun was gradually closing in behind him, with a small black dot further behind, likely a Sword Douluo. But Bai He didn't intend to accelerate again. Young people are impulsive and easily tempted. He planned to use himself as bait to lure Li Sun. A red firecracker shot from his hand, clearly visible against the azure sky. Unlike the signal from the heavenly Dao side, The Star Luo army camp immediately descended into chaos. It wasn't that their discipline was lacking, but rather that they had experienced too many defeats recently. From the sky, they looked like ants on a hot plate, scurrying about haphazardly. Fortunately, the commotion was temporary. As several figures suddenly took to the air, morale quickly stabilized. "Sect Master, come help me." Bai saw the figure in the middle, his face lit up with joy, and he flew off rapidly. Tang Xiao saw Bai rushing towards them and also noticed the figure behind him, prepare to engage. Because of the distance, he couldn't see who the figure behind him was, but based on past experience, only Sword Douluo could barely keep up with Bai. The Haoshan sect members immediately felt on high alert. The two sides had fought more than once and knew Sword Douluo's strength, and the opponent often had reinforcements behind him. At this moment, Li Sun was enjoying the thrill of flying on his sword. The whistling wind in his ears and the fierce wind in his face were far beyond the flying ability of the Blue-Silver Emperor's right leg bone. At this moment, he felt like a sword immortal. "Trying to lure me in? I wonder who's the fisherman here." Seeing Bai suddenly slow down, Li Sun chuckled, showing no fear of the Haoshan sect members who were waiting in battle ahead. The distance drew closer, close enough to make out the general outline of their clothes. Bai had already reached Tang Xiao's side, turning to look at Li Sun. Even closer, a knowing smile, as if to say "you're too young," could be seen on Bai's aged face. Li Sun smiled back, slowly clasping his hands together, his inner soul power held back, his flying sword showing no sign of stopping. "Little Sun, don't." This scene startled the Sword Douluo behind them, who shouted immediately. However, the distance was too great, and his voice was drowned out by the wind. The Sword Douluo quickly unleashed his full soul power, increasing his speed slightly. "Sect Master, that's Li Sun." Bai pointed at the rapidly approaching Li Sun, smiling. Tang Xiao's eyes lit up. Although he was puzzled by Li Sun's speed, since this kid dared to charge into the camp alone, it would be a waste not to seize this opportunity as leverage. The other members of the Clear Sky sect also showed joy on their faces. Li Sun's actions were tantamount to walking into a trap, potentially becoming the turning point in their conflict with the Heavenly Dalliance. The Clear Sky hammers appeared one after another, and everyone became impatient. At this moment, Li Sun also felt the distance was close enough. Seeing that the white crane showed no sign of moving, he smiled, instantly drawing away most of his soul power, and his second martial soul vanished. Martial soul, true body, true thousand hands. The once clear sky suddenly darkened, shadows looming over everyone's heads. A colossal figure, its entire form obscured at a glance, fell from the sky. Boom! An incredibly massive black shadow crashed to the ground, raising clouds of dust. At that moment, the earth shook. Stunned, terrified, the crowd slowly raised their heads, their gazes fixed upwards. Those who clearly saw the gigantic thousand-handed Buddha statue instinctively gaped, their hearts pounding with fear. Chapter 299 The Mighty Haoshan Sect. Boom! The earth trembled, as if an earthquake had struck. A large section of the Star Luo defense line's continuous military camps collapsed instantly, and some weaker soul masters and ordinary soldiers were thrown to the ground by the tremor. Dust rose, soil churned, and the thousand-handed Buddha statue, over 500 meters tall, sat atop the earth, a chilling aura instantly sweeping over everyone present. "What is this?" a soldier asked, mouth agape, looking up at the cloud-like thousand-handed Buddha statue. But no one could answer that question. Even the soul masters in the army were speechless with shock. A tingling sensation shot from their tailbone to their heads, cold sweat instantly soaked their backs, fear and trembling were the prevailing feelings. Some, more vulnerable, even collapsed to the ground, a warm current flowing from their groins to the earth. Human fear of colossal objects is ingrained in our bones, whether we are ordinary people or soul masters. The Haoshan sect members, staring at Li Sun's martial soul true body, also stood frozen in place. The number of martial spirits on the continent is countless, each with different functions, but this is the first time they've seen one like this. Being a titled expert, Tang Xiao instantly regained his composure and shouted, "Don't be afraid. I just saw his spirit rings. This kid is just an 8-ring soul Douluo, but he has 3 100,000-year spirit rings." The surrounding disciples didn't have the sect leader's composure, and their faces showed fear. Tang Xiao knew he couldn't let them lose faith at this moment, and was about to speak to reassure them when he saw the 1,000 arms on the back of the towering Buddha statue move. The Buddha on the top, With Li Sun's emotionless words, a dense barrage of fist shadows crashed down from the sky, instantly covering Bai and the others. Boom boom boom, the sound was far louder than the impact of the Buddha's fall. Soil flew, rocks swirled, and dust instantly obscured everyone's vision. Martial soul true body, hammer shakes heaven and earth. Tang Xiao and Tang Ming, both experienced in combat, knew things were bad as soon as they saw the fist shadow fall. Their spirit rings lit up as they swung their clear sky hammers in a counterattack. At the same time, the other elders and the clear sky sect juniors reacted, overcoming their fear and fighting with all their might for a chance to survive. Bang bang bang, spirit skills collided with palms, clear sky hammers clashed with fist shadows, a series of rapid booms assaulting everyone's eardrums. Wood chips flew, severed hands flew everywhere, thousands of hands and hundreds of arms were instantly shattered, and the clear sky sect paid a heavy price. Bai, as the primary target, was instantly blocked from all escape routes. He tried to dodge, but Li Sun had his sights set on him, and within 2 breaths, he had nowhere to run. The fist shadow fell in an instant, leaving no trace of his body. Accompanying him were an 80th level Soul Douluo and more than a dozen clear sky sect juniors. Another titled elder of the clear sky sect also failed to react in time, revealing a weakness that Li Sun focused his attention on. Sect Master, save me, the 5th elder cried out in alarm as he watched the enormous fist about to strike him. Clear sky protection. Just then, 4 clear sky hammers shot out simultaneously, their spirit rings flashing one after another, instantly forming a dark golden shield that enveloped everyone. But it was too late. The moment the shield formed, the 5th elder had already been blasted into a bloody pulp, leaving only his several enormous arms, severed by the light shield, standing upright in place. Fifth brother, cries filled with anger and grief rang out as the clear sky sect members were filled with fury. I'll fight you to the death. The 7th elder's eyes were bloodshot, his aura rising continuously. He disregarded the risks and was about to forcefully shatter his spirit rings. Enough, 7th brother. Retreat first. Tang Ming, his face filled with grief and anger, slammed his hand on the 7th elder's shoulder. Let me go. I'll make that brat pay for his crimes and blood. The 7th elder shrugged, only to find the large hand gripping him tightly. 7th elder, don't be impulsive. We don't yet understand that brat's abilities. The 5th elder has already fallen. The clear sky sect cannot afford any more losses. Looking at the dense barrage of fists and the approaching sword Douluo, Tang Xiao's heart bled, and their reinforcements are almost here. His clear sky hammer, like a small mountain, shimmered with blood-red patterns, and he hurled it at the relentless onslaught of fists, the hammer instantly slipping from his grasp. It was a heaven-piercing strike. The clear sky hammer, with unparalleled power, destroyed the fists in front of him, then arced through the air, smashing through more than a dozen arms before flying back into his hand. The sect master is right, 7th elder, don't be impulsive. The 3rd, 4th, and 6th elders spoke up one after another while defending against the attacks. I refuse to accept this. The 7th elder's chest heaved violently with rage, his voice a suppressed roar. The exchange had only lasted a short while. Previously, Li Sun had been unclear about his own strength level, but now he had a rough idea. Those below level 95 were no match for him. As for those above level 95, he still needed to experiment, but he could already see Tang Xiao and the others' intention to retreat. Trying to retreat? Killing God domain, power amplification. The 8th red spirit ring beneath Li Sun's feet lit up. A pale white color suddenly spread outwards from Li Sun, accompanied by a layer of light blue light, the spirit ring skill of Titan Snow Demon King. However, standing over 500 meters in the air, the domain couldn't reach the Haoshan sect members on the ground. It was purely used to amplify damage. Countless fist shadows rained down. Although the number of arms had decreased by more than half, the power was even greater. Boom boom boom, huge fists slammed into the protective shield, causing the golden light shield formed by the combined power of the 4 Haoshan sect elders to deform continuously, making everyone's hearts tremble. Just then, a giant hammer suddenly joined in, its spirit rings flashing, and a stream of spirit power flowed through the Haoshan hammer into the golden light shield. With this assistance, the golden light shield called Haoshan protection instantly stabilized. First, retreat out of their attack range. We absolutely cannot let Sword Douluo join forces with them. Tang Xiao's expression was grim. Although he wasn't afraid of the attack, the other elders weren't. He quickly flashed into the light shield, leading everyone out of the true Thousand Hands attack range. Look! Tang Ming stopped in mid-air, pointing at the true Thousand Hands, which had stopped moving. At this moment, the true Thousand Hands had stopped attacking, and Li Sun, standing on the Buddha statue's head, was just quietly watching them, without making any further moves. Tang Xiao's eyes flashed, and a series of analyses appeared in his mind. Summoning such a behemoth must consume a lot of energy. In addition, with the use of some skills, his soul power as an 8-rank soul Douluo will definitely be difficult to sustain. Then what are we waiting for? The 7th elder gritted his teeth. Strike while the iron is hot. With so many of us, if we don't let our guard down, can't we wear him down? Too late, Tang Xiao sighed, his gaze fixed on the rapidly approaching sword Douluo. The other elders also saw the figure. The opportunity is fleeting. Li Sun sensed sword Douluo's arrival, and his true Thousand Hands vanished with a roar. Little Sun, is this your true martial soul form? Although sword Douluo had heard poison Douluo mention it, he still felt a sense of unreality when he saw the colossal creature standing on the ground from afar. Such a martial soul didn't need to consider quality, its sheer quantity and attack frequency were enough to make it invincible among its peers. And it wasn't impossible for someone of lower rank to defeat someone of higher rank. Li Sun smiled and nodded. Grandpa Sword, Grandpa Bone, and Grandpa Poison, those two are crawling like tortoises. Sword Douluo shook his head with a smile. The previous plan was for Douluo and Bone Douluo to circle around to intercept the white crane, but Li Sun's skills were so domineering that the white crane was frightened into constantly unleashing its full speed. And how could an ordinary person catch up with the swift, the fastest martial soul on the continent? If it weren't for his profound cultivation, he would probably be just like Bone Douluo and Poison Douluo, nowhere to be seen. Chapter 300 Research and Advancement of the Front. The two sides were locked in a standoff in the sky, but the Star Luo Empire's defenses were crumbling. The brief clash had had a devastating impact on the lower-ranking soul masters and soldiers. From the perspective of ordinary people, it looked like a god had descended to punish them. Although many knew it was merely a martial soul skill, most were simply ignorant and superstitious. This was because gods and faith truly existed in this world. Many, overwhelmed by the scene, involuntarily knelt and kowtowed in the direction of Li Sun, praying for divine forgiveness. Others took advantage of the chaos to retreat, fleeing the area as if their lives depended on it. The morale of Adonio's defensive line had collapsed. Sect Master, what do we do? Tang Ming's face showed worry as he looked at the soldiers scurrying about like ants. The Clear Sky sect had not only lost an elder and a powerful relative, but its soldiers had also suffered a massive rout. This war was unwinnable. What about the Clear Sky sect's promising young talents? Tang Ming felt a pang of grief at the thought of those fallen juniors. Unlike the 7 treasure glazed tile school, the Clear Sky sect cannot freely form kinship ties. They must maintain a pure bloodline at all times to ensure that their disciples always awaken a Clear Sky hammer, thus solidifying their position as the #1 sect on the continent. Currently, there are only about 300 direct descendants, and those who can participate in this battle are all children with certain talents. Now, more than a dozen have died, which is a considerable loss for the Clear Sky sect. First, retreat to Antonio City to regroup the defeated troops and gather the experts from Xingluo. Then, withdraw the defensive line to Jiangxin City. Our forces are too scattered right now. Tang Xiao and Li Sun exchanged a heavy glance. This kid is only level 80 and already has such strength, plus 3 100,000-year soul rings. I can't imagine the consequences if he breaks through to level 90. If we can't kill him during this time, the Haoshan sect will have to go into seclusion again. At this point, reputation is no longer important. Ensuring the sect's survival is the top priority. Sect Master, we are not without a fighting chance. The 7th elder, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly spoke up. I see now. This kid's skills are strong, but they consume a lot of energy, and his mobility is poor. As long as we get out of his attack range when he releases his skills, we'll be fine. Difficult? Tang Xiao slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. The Haoshan sect and the 7 treasure glazed tile sect were already evenly matched. Now that the 5th elder has fallen, and the other side has Li Sun, it will be difficult for us to gain an advantage in combat power. Upon hearing this, the elders fell silent. Indeed, apart from Tang Ming, who is a level 95 titled cultivator, the highest cultivation level among the remaining 3 was only level 94. I remember when he appeared, he seemed to have 2 100,000-year soul rings, and his martial soul wasn't the one he has now. Do you think he might have twin martial souls like Xiao Sen? Tang Xiao raised his hand, stopping the elder's words, and slowly retreated towards Li Sun and Sword Douluo. The results achieved this time were enough. With the death of Bai He, Zhengluo would no longer have a means of rapid communication. And the death of a Haoshan sect elder had also caused a huge loss to the enemy. Maintaining a martial soul true body of more than 500 meters was too exhausting, and Li Sun's soul power was now almost depleted. Li Sun and Sword Douluo exchanged a glance and slowly descended from the sky. So infinite blue was the true strength of Oshirama Senju, Li Sun thought to himself. It seems that immortal arts still need to be developed. One cannot put all one's eggs in one basket. Although the position of sea god seemed to be within easy reach, it was ultimately only a first-level god, far weaker than the Azure God King. And now that the situation was still uncertain, he could only dream of the dual gods in one body. The specific outcome depended on the mood of the two above. Besides, no one would resurrect him if he died. Zhu Qing was more likely to do so. Li Sun looked up at the sky. There was still no information about the Azure God test. Tang San had said that the killing god domain was the Azure God test, but in reality, he himself was also confused. He had only been constantly absorbing energy through the 8 spider lances, and then the domain slowly evolved, especially the last evolution when he absorbed the energy of the deep-sea demon whale king. Did he have to absorb it too? Although wood release could absorb the energy of others, it only borrowed the power of others to maintain the stability of the skill and did not amplify the user. Li Sun banished this thought from his mind. His future was bright, and he wouldn't stoop to such extremes. He would first try to see if he could evolve the killing god domain through comprehension, and he also had to find a way to retrieve the Azure God sword. As for immortal techniques, Li Sun suddenly thought of clones while making plans. He had analyzed the origin of his martial soul. He suspected that after the Great War of the Dragon God era, the original Douluo realm was polluted, and humans evolved specifically to adapt to the environment. The martial soul was like a filter, blocking harmful external energy, but also diluting some of the characteristics of the energy in heaven and earth. This is why, although he sensed the power of nature, he was unable to absorb it. At that time, Li Sun was still very weak and dared not bypass his martial soul to allow the energy of heaven and earth to freely enter his body, as even a trace of energy almost caused his body to suffer an accident. After the clone dissipated, the energy in his body would inevitably return to his main body. However, with his current strength, he could try. After all, whether it was his physique or his control over energy, he was not as good as he was before. Poison Douluo and Bone Douluo arrived late, but they were no longer needed. Due to Li Sun's victory in the first battle, the Star Luo front collapsed, and the Heaven Dao army began to advance. However, this time they split into 3 routes. One route followed Li Sun and his group towards Antonio City, another route went directly into the Dragon Flame province, passing through the Slaughter City, and heading towards Dragon Flame City. The third route was the newly recruited army of Heaven Dao, aiming at the Hadrian Kingdom. Once Li Sun and his group captured Antonio City, they could jointly attack Jingxin City, thus taking a quarter of the Star Luo Empire's territory. This territory happened to be completely connected to the Heavenly Dao realm. Hundreds of thousands of troops wouldn't be able to teleport instantly. While waiting, Li Sun began his research. To be on the safe side, he first created 3 clones, 1 to develop a method to shield his martial soul from absorbing natural power, and 2 to research new meditation techniques. Li Sun had complained about Yu Xiaogang about this a long time ago. Yu Xiaogang had been stuck at level 29 for half his life without innovating his cultivation method, always trying to take advantage of what was readily available. Even a 9th grade purple mushroom had only barely allowed him to break through to level 30, he was truly a waste. Even if he bet on Tang San becoming a god, so what? He still didn't take him to the god realm to roam freely. Instead of wasting time compiling data on the 10 core competitive advantages of martial souls and training disciples, he should focus on researching how to improve the cultivation speed of his techniques. Even if he himself couldn't succeed, his name would be remembered for eternity. As for the risks of improving techniques, it was only about level 29 soul power. Even if his cultivation failed, it wouldn't be a loss, since he couldn't defeat higher level opponents, he could only bully ordinary people. In truth, Li Sun missed him quite a bit, wondering how the Grandmaster was doing. Starred out Great Forest. Tang San feigned fear as he looked at BG, but inwardly sneered. He didn't know what this soul beast was thinking, actually trying to use his bloodline as leverage. Who among those familiar with him didn't know his own background? Originally, he had a good impression of these soul beasts. After all, his mother was also a soul beast in human form, and Xiao Wu. Thinking of Xiao Wu, Tang-san quickly lowered his head, a murderous glint in his eyes. It seemed that not all soul beasts were reasonable. But that was fine too, it was mutual exploitation anyway, so he had no psychological burden. Let these soul beasts think what they want. Calming himself, Tang-san raised his head again, his expression somewhat aggrieved, as if afraid these soul beasts would reveal that he possessed soul beast blood. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all, see you in the next video.